Good evening, Yucaipa, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting of February 13th, 2023. And at this time, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Scoville to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Honorable Mayor, Council, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lieutenant. At this time, I'd like the City Clerk to please call roll.
Councilmember Garner. Here. Councilmember Thorpe.
Here.
Councilmember Venable. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Duncan. Mayor Beaver.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Crawford, is there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to public comment. If anybody would like to speak, there's speaker slips in the back of the room. You can hand them to our city clerk. She will get them to me. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute maximum time for speaking. We will, if you hit that 3-minute, I'd ask that you wrap up your comments and finish up your thoughts. But please be mindful of the 3-minute rule. Also, please be respectful of those who are speaking. Everybody is entitled to their 3 minutes. At this time, I'd ask that it'd be first speaker is Tom Rash.
Thank you. I've called City Hall twice and left a message about fixing the audible signal on 4th Street. Haven't heard back, so I thought I'd bring it to the council. And some people may not know what that's for or how it's used, and it's been there for 30 years, by the way. When you push the walk, you want to go across the street, it makes a tone to let a blind person know it's okay to walk. Without that, even though blind people are well trained to get around, sometimes if somebody runs a red light, because we're trained when the parallel traffic goes, that means it's safe. If somebody runs a red light, you could get killed because you think it's good to go. Sometimes with signals that have left-hand turn lanes, if you're not familiar with it, when those left-hand lanes start to move, you think it's okay to go. That's why it's important to have that audible signal on 4th and Yucaipa Boulevard. They should be in other places too, but we're thrilled to have it there. The one crossing east and west, crossing 4th, has been out for a year. That one, for me personally, isn't terribly important because there's enough parallel traffic. Yucaipa Boulevard is always surging, so no problem there. But when you're trying to cross the boulevard, that signal just went out 2 weeks ago. That's the one going north and south across the boulevard. It went out 2 weeks ago, and I just brought it to the attention of City Hall. I haven't heard back, so I hope you intend to fix it or replace it. I don't know if you've taken them out with the remodeling going on, or they just broke down and need some maintenance.
Thank you, sir. Fermin, can we address that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we did receive a report of the audible at 4th and Yucaipa Boulevard, and we contacted our signal maintenance contractor, and they're on it, but we had not heard of the one at 3rd, so we'll have them look at both locations and get those repaired.
Thank you, and I think Mr. Rash is absolutely correct. I think,
and I can help you locate them if you can't find them. But yeah, I'd appreciate it. We do use it. And as the city grows and expands, which we're all seeing, maybe sometime down the road, you might want to think about 5th Street because it's busy and shopping, and the bus transit center is down there.
Absolutely.
And also Oakland Road because of its shopping capacity. And
absolutely.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Richard Frost. Followed by Kimberly Knox.
Richard Frost, 12731 3rd Street. Yeah, I just wanted to comment again about the shuttles and the buses with the overcrowded with the students. They finally repaired that bus stop, number 19 bus stop on Yucaipa Boulevard that some of the students had torn down, and they cleaned up the trash and everything. But the Omnitrans isn't too bad, but these shuttles here, these OmniLink, 2 weeks ago, I was on one, and they picked up across from the Yucaipa Recreation Center, and a whole bunch that just packed the whole bus and way beyond capacity. And that's not really safe, all the pushing and shoving and all that. And I spoke to one driver who would quit because of the crowding on the buses. Said he used to work for the San Bernardino Fire Department and said if there was an accident and they saw all those people on the bus that he'd be in trouble. And at one time before the pandemic, they had 2 of those shuttle buses going, clockwise and counterclockwise. And weekend service too, and they cut that and they just have 1 shuttle. If they had 2 shuttles, which they're thinking about, they wouldn't have to be so crowded. And it is dangerous. I mean, I don't see why they have to have so many on one, because I did have an accident that would be pretty kind of a mess. And a lot of OmniLink drivers don't like to drive in Yucaipa, and they'll just simply because of that, and they'll ask other drivers, say, how do you stand those students, and that kind of thing. And they have a free student pass, but it's not, they have to show their pass, but a lot of times the drivers don't have the time to check the passes, so that's another reason why it gets so crowded, so, but anyway.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass it on to our Omnitrans committee member. Next speaker, Kimberly Knox, followed by Chris Woolard.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and staff. First, I would like to thank you for your past, present, and future, hopefully, support of the Yucaipa Outreach Project of the Family Services Association of Redlands. I'm the Fund Development Manager at Family Services, where we focus on fighting hunger and homelessness and providing safety net services for families and the elderly in a financial crisis. We are again requesting support for our satellite office located on 4th Street, and I would like to share some important information with you. In 2022 and 2023, we housed families in crisis with 156 vouchers for motel nights so that they wouldn't sleep in their car or sleep on the street. We paid 25 families either rental assistance or move-in assistance for them to go into stable housing, and also provided them with fresh food for at least a month until they got on their feet with the funding that you provided us last year. So again, we're asking for your support for this year to continue to do the work that we're doing in Yucaipa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The next speaker, Chris Woolard.
Good evening, Councilman. My name is Chris Woolard, and I'm here to speak about the excessive speeds on Wildwood Canyon Road, especially between Mesa Grande and Oak Grove. As you're probably aware, on January 25th, there was a fatality involving a bicyclist who was leaving Wildwood City Park to enter Wildwood Canyon State Park. She actually was hit at the entrance to Wildwood Canyon State Park. I happen to live on that road. She also was a friend of mine. The speeds on Wildwood Canyon Road are posted at 45 miles an hour in that location, but no one goes 45 miles an hour. From Mesa Grande to the crosswalk that goes from Wildwood City Park into the state park, people are exceeding 50, 55, 60 miles an hour. There is signage there with a flashing yellow light that was not working at the time of the accident, but you can't see it. If you're heading east, there's an elevation in Wildwood Canyon Road that until you reach the top of that, you can't even see that there's a crosswalk there, nor can you see the signage or the yellow flashing light. So visibility is very bad, and that's exactly where she was struck by a motorcycle. This crosswalk has numerous problems. First of all, there's no way to slow the traffic down to indicate, that slow down, there's a crosswalk there. That crosswalk is used extensively by people traveling from the city park into the state park. And also there is a step over right in front of the entrance to that crosswalk. That was put there over 25 years ago to keep motorcycles out of the city park when the new fencing was put up. Well, since then, the city has put a huge apron entrance into the city park for horse trailers or whoever else wants to go in there. So that step over is serving no purpose whatsoever. It's an obstruction. Horses, if a horse is going to enter the state park from the city park, which a lot of people do, they have to straddle that thing. Otherwise, they're in the middle of Wildwood Canyon Road. So I would ask the city to please look at this and remove that thing. Also, there are no turn lanes in either direction for cars to enter either park, state park or city park, which means if you're going to turn, all the traffic behind you has to stop. Well, people these days are very impatient, and they don't want to wait while you go ahead and make your turn. So they pass you on the right. Well, if you're traveling east on Wildwood Canyon Road at that location, they're going to be exactly right in the middle of that crosswalk. If someone's there, they're going to hit them. So I'm asking you, please, let's not let someone else die as a result of this situation. Wildwood Canyon Road is no longer a sleepy country road. After 500-plus homes were built up there, it's become a freeway. I call that crosswalk the crosswalk in the middle of the freeway. So please, do something to slow the traffic down. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's take a jab at this for a few different ways. For me, from an engineering and education standpoint, can we work on making that a priority, bringing that back to the city so we can reevaluate that? That certainly needs to become a priority. If engineering can help out with that, whether it be speed, calming, maybe more stop signs for those roads, speed bumps, whatever we got to do to slow people down. And then enforcement and education standpoint, Lieutenant, let's put that over. And
I was actually out on that fatality, speaking to some of the residents, and it definitely is an issue, and I've assigned our traffic guy to do some additional enforcement.
so for the benefit of those at home, the lieutenant is made mention that he's spoke to the residents up there on the night of the fatality, and he is given direction to the traffic division officer to make that a priority in that area. So we'll make a multi-pronged approach to that, ma'am, and see if we can use those 3 E's of traffic calming: education, enforcement, and engineering. Thank you.
We need to slow people down.
Absolutely. Okay, next speaker, Lloyd Rexdad, followed by Roger Wall.
Honestly, it pains me to have to speak again tonight. I stand here, but it is clear, unmistakably clear, that the testimony of the Yucaipa citizens has made no impact on you, the city council. I simply want to remind you, we are not going away. You're not going to be allowed to continue making your backroom deals without serious repercussion. I'm referring to the hiring of the new city manager. The mayor assured us, after the fact, that there would be a thorough background check of the new manager. This empty statement was put forth after the city manager had been hired and safely ensconced in his position. I guess you're expecting us to be satisfied with your belated platitudes, but we are not. First of all, Mr. Mayor, you of all people, I'm speaking as a county employee to a Riverside County employee, former county employee, you should understand the process of hiring a high-level government official. The position, it's essential that the position be posted, be advertised, candidates must be screened, vetted, interviewed by a committee, take written examinations if necessary, and ultimately the best candidate will be selected. None of that took place in the process of replacing the fired Ray Casey. Ray Casey was fired. The new city manager mysteriously appeared from the darkness of the parking lot, and within that hour, he was hired. It's incomprehensible to me that you were able to magically find this supremely qualified and readily available candidate to fill a position that was unnecessarily made vacant because of the personal desires of certain council members on this city council. If you didn't have the integrity and the ethical character to go through the hiring process in a principled manner the first time, why would we ever believe that you will make any effort to correct your egregious behavior? The fact that you shortcut your interview process speaks to one of two disturbing conclusions. Either you're ignorant of how to manage the process and ultimately how to manage our great city, or you're corrupt and simply don't care about the implications of your decisions. Neither of these options is acceptable.
Thank you, sir. Roger Wall, followed by Patricia Wall.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Roger Wall. Last year, we bought a home on Panorama Drive, and I love being here in Yucaipa. It's a wonderful town. I'm so happy I moved here. I'm following up on a letter that I delivered to, not the city clerk, but I guess the cashier in the front office on January 5th of this year, who I presume delivered it to all of you. I don't know if you did get it. My wife and I are respectfully asking for the city to remove an unpermitted, illegal motocross track located on city property in the Oak Glen Creek watershed basin. It's about 200 yards west of Pendleton and 200 yards east of Fremont. You have 3 parcels there. The parcel numbers are 032114, 103 through 105. The track is adjacent to our backyard, which is why I'm here. I have no problem with motorcycles or mountain bikes. I have both. I've walked this track with Mr. Duncan on January 6th. He assured me that the city would do something about it. This is city-owned public land which has been taken over by, let's see, local kids. This track has become a destination hangout for after school, for weekends, and has become an ongoing public nuisance. Come summer vacation, it will be out of control, just as it was this past Christmas break. We have called the sheriff non-emergency number dozens of times, and I'm sure that they are tired of getting my calls and have certainly more important things and matters to attend to. If this track was on my property and we were creating this nuisance, code enforcement and law enforcement would be at our door in a heartbeat, forcing us to stop. There is a city ordinance on the books, number 166, that prohibits this, and signs are posted at all access points to this water basin, and the signs are all being ignored. The only cost-effective solution that I can see is to remove this tract. This ongoing nuisance is interfering with the quiet enjoyment of our residential home. And this track is out of reach of law enforcement. And I'd like to finish by asking you to please consider and pass a resolution for this purpose. Thank you all for your time, and I'll be back in 2 weeks to follow up on this matter.
Thank you. Lieutenant Scoville, can we see about getting the off-highway vehicle enforcement team out here? I know the sheriff has a OHV team that might want to camp out there while the city works on trying to get the track taken back.
Yeah, we've already referred it to the off-highway vehicle team. They're planning on doing an operation that starts here and working its way up through the mountain areas.
Thank you, sir. Patricia Wall, followed by Terry Boone.
Good evening. Patricia Wall. I live on Panorama. I'm following up on my husband's comments, I'd like to paint you a picture of what it's like having an illegal dirt bike track on my neighbor's property. First, I'll tell you who my neighbor is. It's you, the city of Yucaipa. On a typical day, anywhere from 3 to 10 or more high school and junior high school aged boys show up and stay for minutes to hours. Yesterday was a typical day where they showed up around 11 and we heard the last engine noise after 6 p.m. 7 hours. The only way to escape the noise is to leave my home. Beside the sound of motorcycle engines, we have to listen to them cursing, fighting, and their music from their boomboxes. We have also had to listen to them as they used a chainsaw to destroy trees to use to make more jumps. They are moving in and have no plans to leave. While their litter is everywhere, they have recently added a trash can to the area as well as a wicker chair with a toilet seat. While it is certainly not the most prevalent item of litter, I find the human excrement and used toilet paper to be the most offensive. I have witnessed on multiple occasions an adult in a truck deliver supplies to this illegal dirt bike track. Supplies such as shovels that they use to dig up native plants and make more jumps, pallets to help with their expansion of their illegal and annoying playground. Have no doubt, council members, this track is expanding. This illegal use of your property is expanding. My husband and I are seeing the growth in numbers of users and size of the area of destruction. I assume that you are all familiar with what the top of fur now looks like due to rampant use by dirt bikers. That will happen to this area as well unless immediate and permanent action is taken by you. The users of this track are destructive, reckless, and dangerous. They are cutting down your trees and illegally grading your land using both shovels and the wheels of their bikes. They have removed my neighbor's no trespassing signs and thrown them over the fence into my yard. They have knocked down multiple Inland Empire Resource Conservation District signs and placed one prominently in the trunk of one of the trees that they destroyed. They have forged at least 2 new trails for themselves on my neighbor's steep slope, creating an erosion issue. They clear their spark plugs by loudly revving their engines, creating showers of sparks. Sparks on your property located in a high fire risk zone right next to my property. If you live next to a dangerous nuisance of this magnitude, if your neighbor allowed this type of activity next to your home, I'm certain that you would take any action necessary to eliminate it. You, City of Yucaipa, are being a bad neighbor, and my husband and I are willing and able to take any reasonable action to have this illegal nuisance eliminated. There are precious few remaining beautiful, peaceful, natural areas in our town. Please show us that you care and have this track removed.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Crawford, can we have Public Works perhaps go out there escorted by the Sheriff's Department to start immediately demoing that?
Yep, we're
public
going to set a
nuisance?
meeting in the morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Boone? Followed by David Duran.
I am here tonight out of love for my country, and love for my city. I want to make an announcement first because I was here a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Spahn passed away, and his memorial service will be Thursday, March 2nd at 11 a.m. at St. Francis Cabrini. And in lieu of flowers, they're asking donation to Tunnel of Towers. So, tonight I brought 2 balloons, but I took them outside because somebody was allergic to latex and I didn't want to cause any trouble. The balloon is a symbol of treason. The current executive branch of the United States is allowing a hostile foreign government to surveil our nuclear arsenal silos and our own soil. So how is that any different than the treason that is happening right now in the City Council of Yucaipa? You are not behaving in a democratic manner by acting on the concerns of the governed. Number 1, we do not want Chris Mann and the new attorney to work for our city, and we want transparency on such hiring and firing. Number 2, we want you to always honor the general plan. Justin Bieber, we want so much to believe and trust you, but you're breaking that trust. Bobby Duncan, I hope you're listening. You're a total sellout and a fake patriot. Wait until your constituents awake to the fact that you have no problem selling them down the river. And Mr. Garner, I would love to know what kind of effort you put into your own campaign. You were bought and paid for by the developers, and we know it. And by the way, important point, at one of the candidate forums, you wanted to raise city taxes by 0.5%. I don't think so. You have all poked the bear, and now we're taking a page from your own playbook, and we're going to effect a regime change. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. David Duran, followed by Joe Sutt.
Good evening. I'm going to be reading David Duran's statement. He lives on, I'll read this. My name is David Duran. I live at 360064 Panorama Drive. Been there 31 years. You members of the City Council have not been open, nor candid, nor forthcoming as to how Mr. Chris Mann was identified by you as the singular best person to replace Mr. Ray Casey as Yucaipa's city manager. Who approached whom for the position? Which of you identified Mr. Mann as the ideal person for the position? And when did you inform the others that he was your choice and would be pushed through? Why wasn't the city manager position advertised as open to all qualified candidates? Why was Mr. Mann the only person considered? The situation smells of backroom politics. I am asking the new city attorney to present the facts as to how Mr. Mann was named and selected to the state so that an inquiry can be opened to determine if the manner of the selection of Mr. Mann violated the Brown Act. Yucaipa's citizens are intelligent, involved, and concerned about the values their community represents. This current situation is contrary to their shared values. Frankly, this deal and the way it played out elicits the machinations exhibited in Moreno Valley. Yucaipa is not Moreno Valley. That's Mr. Duran's. Now I'm reading for myself. And I live at 34111 Wildwood Canyon Road, number 117. When our fledgling city council, comprised now of mostly inexperienced members, in one of their very first significant decisions abruptly acted to remove Ray Casey and Attorney David Snow from their respective positions of Yucaipa City Manager and Yucaipa City Attorney, citizens of Yucaipa were stunned. After many years of exemplary service to the city, and in spite of Mr. Casey's stellar reputation around the state and the fact that they had just negotiated and signed a new contract with him, he was dismissed without any satisfactory explanation to the public. His position was immediately filled, again, with no explanation to the public. The shock of such a monumental decision being made behind closed doors by a city council that is just now learning rules of order regarding how to even conduct a meeting quickly wore off and was replaced by demands from the public for explanations, transparency, and reconsideration of the decision. Unfortunately, those demands were essentially met with stony silence from our elected officials and a blatant refusal to reconsider that contested action. As a result of failure to convince City Council to engage in effective dialogue with their constituents, morale is down at the City Hall and in the community. I'm convinced that no one feels secure in their positions as paid staff or as representatives of various organizations that are dependent on support from the city. Homeowners, too, are wary of how the current efforts by the council to alter the provisions of the city plan will impact their properties and neighborhoods. Especially troubling is the fact that several council members and other advisors and decision makers are heavily invested in the real estate industry and have been and will undoubtedly continue to be influenced by such involvements. This is not the first time that I have been concerned that a governing body that is supposed to represent and defend us has become an adversary of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Miss Diane Smith. Diane Smith, followed by Matt Underwood.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Diane Smith and I live in District 5. I originally planned to come here tonight to ask you to create a memorial for Ray Casey. John Tooker has a park named in his honor, and I thought we could rename the Uptown Park in Ray's honor. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized we've lost a lot more than just a good city manager. We had an attack on our entire lifestyle. I think January 9th was our city's small version of the 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers. We had a surprise attack within our borders, resulting in great destruction. Not only did we lose our guardian city manager who protected our open space and was a trustworthy professional, we lost our innocence. We lost our unity, and we can potentially lose our hometown atmosphere to massive development. Mayor Beaver, Mayor Pro Tem Duncan, and Councilman Garner, you also lost a lot in the attack. You lost our trust and you lost our respect. And Yucaipa will never be the same. We have now experienced people with a lust for power and control, dirty politics, hidden agendas, backroom deals, cronyism, greed, manipulative tactics. How can we go back to the way we were? I like the idea of naming the roundabout at Yucaipa Boulevard and California Street the Ray Casey Roundabout. A plaque could itemize all of Ray's contributions to the city and recognize our former lifestyle of caring, giving, and honest dealings. Every time we have a festival or a Christmas parade or a tree lighting ceremony, we'll be reminded of happier times and the way we were. Please put a Ray Casey memorial on a future agenda to discuss the possibilities. It will only take 2 council members tonight to say that they would like to have it on the agenda in order to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Council. Matt Underwood, Diamond Street. I'm also here to talk about the Casey Snowman Graham Manor. I'm not a lawyer or an expert in contracts, but we're not stupid, and it looks to us like Yucaipa just got hustled. The anatomy of a hustle. Man Communications makes recommendations. People get retired or fired. Man gets hired without any open notice for application of others. Man hustles the city council for a contract. In the contract, city council gives up considerable oversight and authority over him in the contract. He gets to pick and choose when and how to work. Additional people get hired to help man do his job while he gets to keep all his side hustles. One of these new hires is an additional assistant city manager that comes in at $290,000 a year. And the contract says that he always gets 110% of the salary of the highest paid city employee. The remaining pages are an absurd laundry list of ridiculous perks that don't exist for regular working citizens or for retirees. This is a story of nepotism, money, privilege, hierarchy, and injustice that has lacked transparency, integrity, and candor from its inception. Someone, please stand up and represent the people of Yucaipa. Someone muster up some courage to make a motion to somehow revisit or reverse this. It's probably too late, but people are forgiving of mea culpas. Otherwise, this isn't ever going to be forgotten. Looks like I have a minute and a half. I have questions for Mr. Garner. You ran in my district. You haven't answered any emails or phone calls. In one of your ridiculous campaign flyers, you hope for more resident input at City Hall. Wish granted. I've got about 30 questions here, but we'll do about half of them. Why did a large number of Orange County developers donate large amounts of money to your campaign? That's weird. Are you representing Orange County or Yucaipans? How long have you known Mr. Mann? Chris Mann personally donated to your campaign. Wouldn't it have been ethical to recuse yourself from the Casey Snowman Graham matter? Since you didn't recuse yourself, how could you have possibly had enough knowledge of this matter to cast a vote unless you knew this plan was a long time coming? When did you first know about this matter? Other than Mr. Duncan and Mr. Beaver telling you how to vote, can you speak up here tonight and independently articulate your reason for your vote? Or were you just used as a pawn in a scheme? I have one final question for the entire council. Can we, the people, have assurance that the council members will act in transparency, listen to your constituents before making major decisions affecting Yucaipa and employees of Yucaipa? We want representatives, not politicians.
Thank you. Hanson Wang, followed by Stephen West. I'm sorry, Hanson Wong. I apologize, sir.
That's okay. When I was growing up, the other kids would always call me Wing Wang Wong, so I never knew which one to use, okay? My name is Hanson Wong, and I live on Court Street, and I want to thank the City Council and the Mayor for allowing me to speak. I have several concerns, and some of them were alleviated by some phone calls, and I guess I'm one of the privileged ones because I wanted to thank Mr. Gardner for answering my emails and my phone call. So we shall start primarily with our contract with Mr. Mann. Our Councilman Duncan is not here tonight, and he says, we need a pair of fresh eyes, okay? I agree with other people about the consideration of having or not having Mr. Mann, but I'm going to speak about the interim until you decide to continue forth or to stop what's going on. I hate red lights, so I got 2 people to give me their time, by the way. So he says fresh eyes. I'm willing to accept that for the interim, but I expect the City Council to let me know as he progresses in his duties starting March 1 or whenever in March he starts. I want to know at each council meeting what his fresh eyes saw. How does it help the people of Yucaipa? How much does it cost? And when will we see some results? You know, sometimes you're given a pie-in-the-sky answer, and then 10 years later, you're still waiting for the answer. In my line of work, I expect something done soon and answers done soon. Secondly, Mayor Beaver, you had spoken at one of the meetings and said, you know, trust me, I'm a politician. Well, that bothered me a little bit, but I'll accept that, by the way. And you said that give him 6 months. Well, I will temporarily give him 6 months as long as you let me know what is his vision for the city, what are his goals for the city, and how will it help the citizens and residents of our city? What is the timeline? What is the cost? And again, announce it as soon as possible, as soon as he makes up his mind. I expect him to make up his mind on what he's going to do for us in the next 6 months, within the next month. I don't want to see it 5.5 months from now and say, oh, we're going to do this. Again, some of the things I'm going to say might not be true. I only have the actual contract to go by. I've been told, one, that he is able to keep his other businesses going. In addition, that he might be able to hold an office somewhere. Now, our place is very complicated.
Mr. Wong, real quick, I do have one other speaker slip from Phil Filson.
Yes.
You said there was two. Is there one more I should be looking for?
Well, maybe they didn't show up. They
Okay.
were.
And Mr. Filson, you're in the audience. You're. Thank you. Okay, sir. Sorry about that, doctor. Go ahead.
No problem. So he has the option to do these things. If you listen to our prior speakers that did not have anything to do with Mr. Mann, we had problems with accidents and motorbikes or whatever they were. But there are a lot of different problems that need to be dealt with. Can we have somebody that's part-time working deal with a city as complex as ours? In addition, I don't see in his past experience that he has knowledge about homeless people, that he has knowledge about flood zones, that he has knowledge about viticulture and so on. He needs to spend that extra time he thinks he has on learning about these things so that he can service this community in his greatest capacity. So I implore him to devote his time minimally in the next 6 months and longer to our city. Some of the things that I had asked a couple of you about, like, can he bump up his own salary by hiring somebody at a salary that will bring him to a higher amount? I was told no. My concern is I've worked with contracts for over 30 years. And in contracts, if it's not in the contract, it doesn't exist. Backroom talk, hallway talk, coffee room talk doesn't help. So if you truly don't have those things in your contract, either the contract needs to be changed or needs to be amended for those particular points to assure that we don't have an ever-increasing cost to our city for the function of one unit. In addition, the people that he hires, I'll discuss that at the agenda item, so I'll skip that for now because of time. A couple other things that he needs to know is we want no repeat of decrease in first responder services. I was just sure that wouldn't happen, but again, I don't want to see our fire stations and our sheriff's department to be decreased in function in any way, so I'm going to leave that as it is unless I'm forced to bring it up again. So I am not against growth. I am not against fresh eyes, but I am against somebody who doesn't spend enough time, who's not knowledgeable in order to help us out. The last thing I have is metrics. In any good business, when you hire a new employee that has a lot of things going on for the city, you create metrics as a city council. So please create metrics and let the public know. This is our expectations of Mr. Mann, 1 through whatever, and please, timeline, costs, and so on. I will stop because I could go on forever. I apologize.
No apology necessary, sir. And real quick, sir, Mr. West, I'm not sure, Mr. City Attorney, is it appropriate now? I'm in receipt of a memorandum. Is this appropriate to read this now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you read it for me?
I can bring it up. Give me 1 second.
You not have it? I have it up right here. I can go and do that. This is a memorandum dated February 6th from Chris Mann to the City Attorney. The subject is waiver of separation provision in City Manager Employment Agreement. Section 7.4 of the City Manager Employment Agreement by and between the City of Yucaipa and Chris Mann approved and signed on January 30th, 2023 states, quote, "The annual base salary of the city manager shall never be less than 110% of the base salary of the city's next highest paid employee," end quote. During contract negotiations with the City Council on January 30th, 2023, my starting base salary was negotiated down significantly. As a result, it is likely that the separation provisions called for in Section 7.4 will be triggered once an anticipated new Assistant City Manager position is approved. The proposed starting base salary for the new Assistant City Manager is $224,000. I believe the fully burdened amount is what the previous speaker spoke of. Which had been negotiated prior to January 30th, 2023. 110% of $224,000 is $246,400, which is $6,400 greater than my negotiated starting base salary of $240,000. However, Section 7.1 of the city manager employment agreement calls for an automatic increase in base salary to $260,000 on the first anniversary of the agreement. Thus, after 12 months of employment, the separation provisions will no longer be triggered. The triggering of the separation provisions during the initial 12-month period of employment was unintentional and not anticipated by either party during contract negotiations, but was subsequently discovered days following approval and signing of the agreement. Therefore, I hereby voluntarily waive the separation provisions called for in Section 7.4 of the city manager employment agreement for the first 12 months of my employment as city manager. And that is dated February 6, 2023. I wanted that to be entered. Mr. West, I apologize for taking your time. You have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm Stephen West. I live in Norton Avenue on the North Bench. I'm a physician. I work at Kaiser Permanente, been there for multiple years. Dr. Hans Wong trained me. Whether he missed that or not, I'm not too sure. But he's a great guy. In the past, for Kaiser, we've had a tough year. In the past, we received a small income increase every year for inflation. This year, we did not. Because of the tough year we've had at Kaiser due to COVID, personnel staff shortages, tech sector layoffs, employer layoffs, you name it, we've gone through a tough year for us. The analysis that I've seen for the proposed budgets for increasing the pay of the new city manager and the staff are alarming. These new employees have not even started, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding them. I've been to a couple planning AVA meetings. I have spoken a couple of times from this microphone. I've seen a constant message to try to change the North Bench Rural Living 1 designation. The hiring of the city manager is very suspect. When I read his job website, which is, I hear is taken down now, his group touted working with companies that build large housing tracts to get them past city councils and citizens of the city to get large tracts built. I could hardly believe it when I read this. Now it all makes sense. It seems the city council members hire a person and those that come with them to change the city plan to build as many houses as possible and maximize profit. As I found out more about this employee, the Inland Empire Tax Association, and the appearance of smear tactics and the funding of one of our city council members, mostly coming through Orange County. The more I learn, the more I'm shocked by the brazen fashion this whole issue has been done. When I started at Kaiser 23 years ago, it was a 3-year partnership track. It took time and commitment. I started out at 1/3 of the pay of what normal physicians at my level did. And it took years to get up to that pay level. It seems crazy we start the manager and his team what appears to be raises of what we have not seen their true colors really are. We have a good idea of the track workers and will not sit and stand and watch the North Bench and other parts of Yucaipa be destroyed. The pay should be 1/3 less than the last city manager until he has shown if they are here to help Yucaipa or make it an overcrowded mess. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Colleen Wong, followed by Stephen Harlan. And Kathy Sellers after Stephanie Harlan.
Colleen Wong, I live on...
I'm sorry, ma'am. Colleen Wong, followed by Stephanie Harlan, and then Kathy Sellers. I apologize, ma'am.
Colleen Wong, I live at 35150 Court Street in Yucaipa. For whatever reason, the three of you decided that Ray Casey's departure was necessary. It is estimated that that cost the city about $1 million total between him and the city attorney. Mayor Beaver, you negotiated this contract with Mr. Mann. I understand from your statements to us here that you are a police officer. Are you an administrator in the police department? I mean by that, are you knowledgeable about the administrative matters in that department? Because according to you as a police officer, you make life and death decisions every day, but you didn't mention any administrative experience. Do you have some special training in contract negotiations that we are not aware of? If not, you certainly had the ability to hire someone who could negotiate for us because that contract is really appalling. Obviously, you thought you did have the expertise to negotiate this contract, and I'm wondering if you were depending on the advice of Mr. Graham. Did it give you any pause that he came as a package deal with Mr. Mann? Are you aware that Mr. Mann does not have a master's degree? He took some classes, but he never completed his degree. Does that make a salary difference? When I read his contract, it could only be a part-time contract because you've allowed him to keep all his other businesses, and you've even allowed him to be, he could be an elected official in some capacity. Is he, the other thing is you've asked him to give you his productive time. How are you defining productive time? Because I'm wondering if his other businesses wonder if they're getting his productive time as well. I think that definition is essential, and I think all of us need to hear it. You are allowing him to hire at will at whatever salary he deems necessary, and you agreed that it was 110% that he could be above the lowest paid. However, my question is he going to do that every time he hires somebody? With the salary and bonuses of Mr. Mann's top 4 tier hires, that's approximately $675,316 per year to this city. If you count his salary, that's $1 million a year, all because you didn't like Ray Casey.
I'm a retired attorney with public agency law experience. I've lived in Yucaipa for 36 years. Councilmember John Thorpe noted in the recent council meeting that he only received a copy of the city manager employment contract the morning of the council meeting at which it was considered and approved. Under those circumstances, the council should have voted to postpone approval of the contract until the next city council meeting. It did not. The copy of the contract I have obtained contains the signature line for newly retained City Attorney Stephen Graham. From all appearances, Stephen Graham came as a package deal with Mr. Mann, the subject of the contract. Did Mr. Graham draft the contract? Public agency employment contracts are to be drafted by the Public Agencies Council, and each party should attest in the contract that they were each represented by independent and separate legal counsel. Did Mr. Graham wear both hats in this matter? The contract does not specify the hours during which Mr. Mann should be on site and available for city matters. By contrast, the Redlands City Manager contract, available online, devotes an entire section to the city manager's work schedule and requires him to generally observe normal business hours of 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., along with work beyond those hours to provide necessary services. The Yucaipa contract states, quote, "City manager has discretion over the city manager's work schedule," unquote. And here's the kicker. The Yucaipa contract permits Mr. Mann to engage in quote-unquote outside activities, including, quote, "consulting, holding elected or appointed office, or other business pursuits," unquote. Public agency employment contracts typically and necessarily prohibit any non-city business duties or pursuits without the city council's express prior written consent, that such activities that might interfere with city business or cause a conflict of interest with the city. Here's the next kicker. City manager employment contracts also routinely include a provision prohibiting conflicts of interest and citing applicable government code sections. The Yucaipa contract, which specifically allows Mr. Mann to engage in outside ventures, has no such provision, no conflict of interest provision. Mr. Mann is currently listed as quote-unquote principal of Mann Communications on its website, which has been updated as of 2023. So that presumably is one engagement he plans to continue and definitely holds the potential for conflicts of interest in view of the company's activities described on its website. To circle back, it appears we have a part-time city manager earning full-time salary and benefits. Perhaps that's why tonight's agenda includes the creation Thank you. It's not much longer, actually. I cut a lot out of what I was going to say. Despite the fact that the city has operated at an exceptional level, as formally recognized by the California League of Cities, with one assistant city manager since the city's inception. But now, apparently, we need an additional assistant city manager. The contract specifies that Mr. Mann's annual base salary will never be less than 110% of the base salary of the next highest paid employee. And by the way, it is not clear in my reading of the contract that what was said a while ago is true, that it only applies to the first year. The new assistant city manager position comes with salary plus benefits of $289,988. Resolution number 2023-02 on tonight's agenda says in item C, revising salary for city manager position, quote, per contract, unquote. I assume this means the contractual 110% bump up is being triggered by the hiring of this assistant city manager. If so, the public needs to know what the dollar amount of the city manager's salary plus benefits will now be. The city manager's contract in so many ways is not in the best interest of the city. I could go on and on about various provisions in the contract which are either deficient or appalling in their effect. There's much more to say, but the time allotted is brief. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Kathy Sellers, followed by maybe DM Harlem, or Dan Harlem, maybe? Sherry Todd will follow Kathy Sellers in, ma'am.
Kathy Sellers, District 1. How does it feel to be the most despised city council in the county now? Yucaipa is being called a laughingstock from Palm Springs to Sacramento, but it's not a bit funny to us. We are not afraid of progress or development, as was stated at the last meeting. We only want to trust in our city government and depend on past promises. The only sour grapes at play is the absurd notion that cluster homes are acceptable if they're surrounded by grape vineyards, or an oversized apartment complex in the wrong location is acceptable because one neighboring couple decides they can live with it. What did Craig Heaps promise to those homeowners? And why aren't more homeowners in that neighborhood stepping forward and blessing that project if it's so great? Also, rumor has it the pumpkin patch will soon be a warehouse. As you can see by those able to attend tonight's meeting and by those who attended previous meetings, the cry for your recall is growing. You have already activated thousands of furious Yucaipa residents. This is before anyone has organized the community. Imagine what will happen when that effort begins. That will encompass a 7 to 8 month opportunity to inform the public about your character, honesty, and personal gain at stake in what you've been up to. Can you all withstand that scrutiny? I promise it will be brutal. Bobby Duncan has stated he's not worried because he has plenty of money behind him to fight it. His latest threat that if we launch a recall against him, he will vote to change the general plan. Bobby, stop making foolish threats. It makes you look foolish. You are all elected to represent us, not rule over us. You've already done so much damage that my advice is simple. Resign and save what's left of your reputation. To the good people living in District 3 who voted for Bobby Duncan, I would like to share with you a phone call I got from him on January 23rd. He announced himself as, "This is Bobby Duncan. I live in the slums of Yucaipa." He maligned our beloved historic district that is the heart of Yucaipa's past and future. We're all proud of our Music and Arts Festival, Autumn Fest, Winter Fest, Yucaipa Performing Arts Center, Yucaipa Women's Club, and Senior Center. Isn't it sad that your councilman referred to your neighborhoods as the slums? He also said, "This job doesn't mean that much to me. It's time to step down, Mr. Duncan, before you can feather your nest on the way out so that you can sell Mr. Heap's cluster homes as a realtor." To our Yucaipa Sheriff and CAL FIRE members, it was reported to me last week that an individual from Yucaipa City Council recently spoke to someone from Redlands City Council about how to fund a Yucaipa Police and Fire Department. So much for Mayor Beaver's assurances in Dr. Boone's driveway meeting that this isn't being contemplated. However, now that Chris Mann has negotiated the language in his contract that, to paraphrase, the City Council shall deal with all subordinate city employees, officers, contractors, and consultants solely through the city manager, and neither the City Council nor any member thereof shall give direction to the city manager. Neither the City Council nor any members shall interfere with the execution and powers and duties of the city manager. There you have Justin Beaver's cover. I strongly recommend that every citizen of Yucaipa pick up a copy of the self-grandized contract negotiated by Chris Mann. Pay close attention to his compensation package. You will be horrified.
Sherry Todd, followed by Kevin Miskin.
Hi, my name is Sherry Todd. I live on Court Street. This is an analysis of the new organizational structure created by Chris Mann for the city of Yucaipa, analyzed by Diane Smith. Chris Mann has moved most of his responsibilities off of his plate and onto the plate of the new assistant manager. For example, and there are 4 examples here. First, direct oversight of emergency services was removed from the city manager and given to an emergency services coordinator / community liaison who is under the oversight of the new assistant manager. Example 2, our director of development services / city engineer was demoted to oversight by the new assistant city manager. Another reduction of the city manager's responsibility and an insult to the director. Our housing and economic development analyst will also report to the new assistant manager instead of the city manager. That was example 3. And 4 is, one of the reasons Yucaipa is so financially secure is because we aggressively pursued grants. The public information officer / grant coordinator was under the direct supervision of Ray Casey. That position will be reallocated to management analyst and removed from Chris Mann's direct supervision. Will we no longer make grant applications a priority? All Chris will oversee are 2 assistant city managers and the senior executive assistant / human resources analyst. His contract states that he can set his own work schedule. It looks like he can just call in once a week and take care of his responsibilities, which are minimal. Let's ease the workload for the workers in the trenches before we let Chris Mann shirk his duties. Under this proposal, Chris will get a $79,000 raise, a drastic reduction in workload, and an opportunity to pay back any favors that he owes his friends. Chris wants some of the positions to be on contracts instead of at will. That way, it will be harder to fire his friends. Are the new jobs going to be advertised or just passed out to his friends? Please vote against this ludicrous proposal.
Thank you, ma'am. Kevin Miskin, followed by James Murphy, and then James Jetton. I'm sorry, that's not right.
I'd also like to address item number 13 regarding the general fund adjustment and salary schedule amendment. The way I read this and the way I understand it, there are 3 new positions that are being considered within the city. According to Chris Mann's contract, it specifically states that he has the right to appoint and to terminate city employees without direct interference from the city council. That means that although we were told Chris Mann was going to start on March 1st, he obviously has already started. And he's the one that's behind these proposals, which will set before you, create 1 additional position of assistant city manager. I don't know why we need a second one. Number 2, creating 1 position of director of general services, city clerk. Again, the salary ranges for these are up to $186,000 a year. And also creating 1 position of director of government affairs. Not sure what they do, but concerned that Mann Communications may be behind that. And they particularly brag about the fact that they offer cover for public officials, and also that they're in the business of affecting the ballot box. In addition to that, I ask, why do we need all these staff appointments? Are there some of these people who hold assistant manager positions that are on the chopping block right now? Why are we revising the existing assistant manager's pay right now? Is it because the negotiated contract with Mann allows him to set his own hours and continue with other elected positions of his own, his private business activities with his own PR consulting firm, and also with his own political action committee, which we now know was involved in the Yucaipa elections, particularly with Chris Mann against his opponent, Ken Munoz. We also know that that particular PAC also donated to Bobby Duncan's campaign, and Chris Mann also donated to Matt Garner's campaign. So let's get it straight. Ray Casey was let go because one city councilman's vendetta against him. As this councilman said, we were fortunate to find Chris Mann, whose PAC happened to be his campaign donor, thus saving the city tens of thousands of dollars in fees that the city would have incurred listing that position. Yet if Casey had a similar contract to Mann, the citizens are paying a severance package to Casey now of $300,000 to $500,000. Now we have 3 new positions that total about $500,000 to $600,000. This means that the Chris Mann appointment has cost taxpayers $600,000 at a minimum to over $1 million. But thank goodness we saved $20,000. Bobby Duncan said in the State of the City address just 5 months ago, the city of Yucaipa has one of the most, and this is a quote, the city of Yucaipa has one of the most amazing city staffs that I have ever worked with in my life and my career. Our staff is amazing. They are very well trained, they are very diligent, they work hard, good leadership. Ray Casey does a good job with the staff directors, and then all the staff works diligently. We strive to maintain a rural atmosphere, a hometown feel, close quote. With that, I ask him the question because now we've learned from people who have come forward that at that very time he was planning the firing of Ray Casey. This smells. Dan Crane had it right. This smells.
The last public speaker, Martha Glubka.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and the great citizens of Yucaipa. Mayor Beaver, I want to quote something you said during election time. I respectfully request you lean on your city council and engage with us that we may know and then carry out your vision for our beautiful Green Valley. Correct? Did I quote that? Okay.
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
Well, here we are, leaning, and tonight we are wondering, do you hear us? Yes? Good. Want to make sure of that. Do you think we're going away and will become silenced? I think not. I'm not going to be repetitive by covering how insignificant the citizens of Yucaipa feel or how underhanded it was to call a meeting with very little notice, the way all of you, our elected officials, have handled the process of reconstructing City Hall and bringing in Chris as a city manager and his cronies or whatever they are. It's absurd. There's red flags popping up all over this city, and everybody's seeing it. How long do you think you're going to hold office? And how quick can we wreck our city? 1 term? I think not. Nobody's going to sit down for it. Does it matter to you that all of his credentials have been uncovered and that he doesn't have a master's? I had to add something tonight. By my count, thus far, you've heard from 3 highly esteemed physicians that did get their master's, their doctorate, and beyond. Imagine if they lied about their education. Would you still practice medicine? Were you not doing background checks on Chris Mann, contingent on employment? But he still gets a contract when he's lied? That gives us a lot of faith in you guys, let me tell you. You're all in a poor position with the people that trusted you, and now look behind me at the faces and the signs in this audience. We're not going away until we feel there's transparency, and then maybe we can work together with one another. Blowing us all off does nothing constructive, and it will continue to divide the city you serve. And for what? Years ago, I owned a store in Yucaipa, and I worked with one of you. And I'll name him now because he's a coward. Where the hell is Bobby Duncan? I defended that guy by so many things. Back when I had the store, it's been about 10 years, he loved this city. I don't believe he loves it anymore. I think he loves the almighty dollar. I defended him on many things. Does anybody have just 2 minutes left? Donate? Can I finish?
Finish your thoughts, please, ma'am.
Okay, I don't have much. Now, while I'm disappointed, I feel that you sold out to the developers, and I also feel it's connected to the shakeup at City Hall. You all need to back it up, humble yourselves, and admit that perhaps, just perhaps, this was not in the best interest of the people you serve, and it was not thought through. More and more is being uncovered here, and we are becoming stronger every day. Don't put our fine rural city on the map for the wrong reasons. Get your pride back this up, hear us roar, and let's work as a team.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, are there any more public speakers? There are more public speakers for the individual agenda items, and I'll call them up as we move to those items. We're moving on to the consent agenda. If there any council member wishes to remove an item from consent? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. I second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to mayor and councilman business reports. Does any councilman have anything to report? All right, moving on to item number 9, appointee to the Mobile Home Rent Review Commission. This is going to be Jennifer Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In December, 2 appointments were made to the Mobile Home Rent Review Commission. William Regan by Mayor Pro Tem Duncan and Leonard LaRocco by Councilmember Venable. However, Mr. LaRocco does have a conflict and had to resign this position. The vacancies of Thorpe, Garner, and Beaver and now Venable were posted, and we received 2 applications, one from Brandy Gomez and one from Gilbert Villapando. I'd like to say Brandy Gomez has served on the Mobile Home Rent Review Commission before, and so she has resubmitted. Neither applicant has a conflict. So at this time, I'll leave it up to you to choose who's going to grab the 2 applicants.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll nominate Brandy Gomez.
I will second your nomination for Brandy Gomez. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And
I nominate Villapando.
I will second your motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, item number 10, the Healthy Yucaipa Committee. Ms. Wolf.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Staff is recommending that City Council consider appointments of James Jetton and Hanson Wang to the Healthy Yucaipa Committee. In December, the City Council approved the appointments of Jeff Distelberg, that was Mayor Beaver's appointment, Meredith Sherwin, Mayor Pro Tem Duncan's appointment, Cynthia Lopez Winter, Councilmember Venable's appointment, and Heather Obier, Councilman Thorpe's appointment to the Healthy Yucaipa Committee. Currently, the committee has 1 vacant council-appointed position, Councilmember Gardner's position, and 2 vacant at-large positions, which leaves a total of 3 vacant seats. Staff has received 2 citizen service applications for the Healthy Yucaipa Committee, one from James Jetton and the second from Hanson Wong. To date, no other applications have been received. This concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to motion that we approve Hanson Wong to the Healthy Yucaipa Committee.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
I'll appoint Jetten, Mr. Jetten.
I will second. And do we vote on those? I believe we do. Yeah. Okay, I will second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And actually, I want to quick go back because I neglected to do this. Would either Brandy Gomez or Mr. Villapando would like to speak? No? How about Dr. Wong or Ms. Jetten? Would you like to speak, Mr. Jetten? Dr. Wong, would you like to speak as well? Jatan, I apologize.
Done.
And congratulations to all the appointees. Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I will do this, so at least you know something about me. Thank you for hearing me tonight. My name is James Jatan, and I am formerly retired, but now a volunteer dentist. I wish tonight to convey to the council my heart for this community, as well as my qualifications. I've lived in Yucaipa and Calamasa for over 20 years and wish to give back to our community in some meaningful way. Being appointed to the Healthy Yucaipa Committee is one way I can do this, as well as my volunteer opportunities, which will include volunteering at Yucaipa Health upon its opening. I've had the opportunity to serve in various leadership positions, including captain in the Army Reserves, executive committee of Patton State Hospital in Highland, executive board of the Union of American Physicians and Dentists, and vice president of the California Association of Free and Charitable Clinics. I've been involved with the establishment of free medical and dental clinics here in California and in Mexico, and served for a time with the San Bernardino Public Health Department, focusing on food insecurities and dental health awareness. Other details of my experience are included in my application and my CV. I believe these opportunities have not only provided me with extensive leadership experience, but have also given me insights into our problems and future solutions of homelessness, drug abuse, and the plight of our most vulnerable populations. I believe I'm a good fit for the Healthy Yucaipa Committee, and can indeed make a difference with your approval, which you have given. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Wong.
Sorry, it's me again, the bad penny. So just to let you know, and I'll make it short because there are a lot of comments on other areas as well. So a couple of things. I think that Yucaipa is a city that can grow and be more healthy. I have read and heard that the Healthy Yucaipa is already working on a blue city. I think we could achieve it or come very close to it, and I will work very hard to help our city achieve that goal. And I have been doing wellness programs with whom I work for the last 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Moving on to item number 11. This is the appointee to the Parks and Recs Commission, Ms. Megan Wolf.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. I am very excited to inform you that the City Council has received an application for the student member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. This commission has not been filled for several years, and staff received an application from Isaiah Million. To date, no other applications have been received. An applicant is here this evening should you wish to speak with him. This is an at-large position and would require a vote. This concludes my report. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions of staff? Is Isaiah Million able to come up and speak to us?
Hello, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to let me be here today as long as your time. My name is Isaiah Million. I'm 16 years old and I'm currently a sophomore in high school. I work at Wildwood Calvary Chapel on our facilities management team where I help pick up trash along with cleaning all the campuses for events and different classroom activities we have. In my free time, I enjoy to work out, go on runs, and hang out with my family. And I really love an opportunity to serve on this commission because I believe that giving back to the community and serving the people is important.
I think you're right. Thank you, sir. And I think everybody behind you will agree. Our parks are great in the city. We need to keep them that way, make them better if we're able to. And to Tolder, I think you're going to be our youngest commissioner, and that is also exciting. So with that, I would like to enthusiastically motion approval for this young man's application to the commission. Is there a second? Outstanding.
I'll second. There we go.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries, sir. Congratulations and welcome to the commission. Moving on to item number 12. This is the 2022 Uptown Ice Rink wrap-up. This will be Ms. Megan Wolf.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. I thought before I started my speech, I would bring your attention to the screen and we can reminisce about the ice rink. Hold on, my friend in the booth there. We're having technical difficulties. I'll sing along with it. Well, I won't sing, but we could watch the video. It's pretty neat. One more thing to note, Mariah Carey was not at the ice rink. On November 26th, the City of Yucaipa's second annual Uptown Ice Rink opened and was operational 7 days a week, including Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. The rink closed on New Year's Day. The rink provided ice skating sessions 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday, and private rink parties 1 day a week on Mondays. The total approximate number of ice skaters was 5,000. The total number of private rink buyouts was 2 out of the 5 Mondays available. In addition, group skate party packages were available for purchase Friday through Sunday, and a total of 4 were sold. Fire pits were available for rent, and it included a fire pit with a couch for up to 6 people to relax and enjoy the beautiful night for an hour and a half. A total of 44 fire pits were sold. New this year was theme nights. That's where the Mariah Carey night came in. Ugly sweater night, DJ night, as well as movie night. Staff originally planned to have the gingerbread shop return as a food vendor. However, they committed to the Mission Inn and could not return for a second year. Staff contacted Roundabout Sweets to see if they were interested in partnering to offer hot chocolate and other sweets by the rink. However, at that time, they could not commit to that. Staff was able to secure 9 sponsorships from local businesses, which included Remax Advantage, American Eagle, Yucaipa, Sullivan's Party Rental, YAPS, YHS Foundation, Markarian Law Group, Payroll, and Miller Optometry. This totaled an amount of $10,950. Staff received positive feedback from Uptown businesses, sponsors, and customers, with one resident who left a voicemail stating, "This is why I moved to Yucaipa last year. The city cares about the residents. It's with activities like this that turn a city into a community." In addition to positive feedback received, staff also received suggestions on how to make the ice rink better. The #1 feedback heard was hot chocolate. A week prior to opening the ice rink, staff came before City Council, as we were made aware that the Live Oak Christmas Tree Farm was also opening an ice rink this year for the same time period, Thanksgiving through Christmas. As outlined in Attachment A, the city's revenues goals were not met due to lower participation than anticipated. The fiscal year 22-23 adopted budget included an estimate net fiscal impact of $165,100. The actual net cost was $189,815 for a difference in the amount of $24,715. Staff is recommending that City Council receive and file the wrap-up report for the 2022 ice rink and provide direction to staff regarding the 2023 ice rink. Prior to providing direction, staff believes it is important to note that Live Oak Christmas Tree Farm intends to have an ice rink again in the 2023 calendar year. This concludes my report, and I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Megan. Is there any questions of staff? We want to take these one at a time, receive and file. Well, we'll receive and file it. Thank you for the report. Relative to the second item on the agenda, or item on that item, it is my impression that while it is well received, I don't think the city government should be competing with businesses in the city of Yucaipa. And if it is truly the intention of the Live Oak Christmas Tree Farm to highlight a ice skating rink each year, I think we should try to support them in their endeavors as a business in our city and not compete with them. To piggyback on that idea, I've seen our community services department bring brilliant, amazing, creative, and fun ideas to our city year after year. And I'm fully confident that the Winterfest could be followed by something grand that is already missing in the city of Yucaipa. And I feel like that's what our community services department does a phenomenal job of doing, is identifying shortcomings in our community that will help us be that community that community member spoke of. So it is my instinct to say we don't have another ice rink. If there's going to be one in the city of Yucaipa, you maybe use our city magazine, your Yucaipa magazine, to highlight the Christmas Tree Farm's ice skating rink and help them be as successful as they could possibly be while we find new, fun, innovative ways to provide a service to the city. That's my thoughts.
I would agree with that. I mean, I also would say that I don't think we should be competing with them. We should support them. But with that in mind, do we have other things in the back of our mind that we would be considering?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Megan.
I have a plethora of ideas with our community services team.
Very good.
So you want direction, or do we need to make an official vote on that? Do you want to go ahead and conclude the ideas that we're going to move forward with the 2023 ice rink now, and then we'll ask maybe you come back with us for fresh ideas for a winter activity? You want to do that? Okay, so.
Can I say something?
Sir.
Our youth advisory, can you go to them and find out what they would think? I think we did already at one time, and they said that they absolutely loved it. But with the competition down below, it kind of cramped everything. But they have great ideas, and I think that you should probably go to them and see where they would want to go.
That sounds great. We can definitely do that.
Well, I just can't see losing $189,000. That's a little tough. So, I mean, I agree with Mayor Beaver.
Very good. So we will call for I will make the motion that the 2023 ice rink be vacated and ask staff to come back with us for another winter activity. So that'll be my motion with sought out input from maybe from the youth advisory and maybe other commissions and committees. Might want to have maybe the Healthy Yucaipa committee. Our new members might have some fresh ideas as well. So that'll be my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Thorpe seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 13. Okay, we're going to need to take a quick restroom recess. So we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes. We'll readjourn or reconvene at 7:35. All right, folks. Let's return to order. Move on to item number 13, the subject general fund budget adjustment and salary schedule amendment presented by Jennifer Crawford and Philip White.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As detailed in the staff report, the proposed organization changes are before you. They're attached to the staff report and on the screen before you. The proposed positions being recommended are highlighted in yellow, and the positions being reallocated are highlighted in light blue. It is based on a 2 assistant city manager system. There would be a creation of the Director of General Services City Clerk position, creation of a Director of Governmental Affairs Public Information Officer, reallocating the Public Information Officer Grants Coordinator position to a Management Analyst.
Jennifer, 1 second, ma'am. Folks, if we could just keep it down in the back, please. I'm having a hard time hearing our city manager present this item. Ma'am.
The reallocation of the City Clerk Deputy Rent Administrator position to the Deputy City Clerk Deputy Rent Administrator Records Technician position, and the elimination of the Deputy City Clerk and Records Tech. These changes are based on the evaluation and recommendation of the city's management consultant, Chris Mann, who's been hired by the City Council to take over as the city manager on March 1st, 2023. The proposed changes will provide the incoming city manager with an executive team that he can trust and can move forward with key initiatives and projects that are highlighted by City Council. On February 7th, 2023, the Finance Committee, which is comprised of Council Members Thorpe and Venable, met with city staff and Chris Mann to review and discuss this item in addition to other finance-related topics. Based on the discussions and documents presented at the meeting, the Finance Committee recommends the support of this item. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Philip, who will go over the fiscal impact.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. The fiscal impact of this item is identified here for your consideration. The assumptions used in the development of that fiscal impact are also detailed. I'd like to highlight a couple of those. The first one being the effective date of the 3 new positions would be March 1st. So there would be 4 months that would impact the fiscal year 23. Also, as we work down this fiscal impact, there's also an annualized estimate for fiscal year 24. As part of the development of that fiscal impact for the 4-month period for fiscal 23, there is a table that's been included. The middle column of that has a fiscal year 23 impact as far as salaries go. Those salaries are based on the range of 57, step 1. Those are also, that range is also highlighted on page 366 of your packet. But based on the range of 57, step 1, the fiscal year 23 impact to salaries of the first position is $49,784. In order to estimate the budget impact for benefits, a rate needs to be applied. There's estimation involved. For the purposes of this estimate, I use the fiscal year 23 budget worksheets as the baseline for the estimate. That is it worked out to a 29% benefit rate that's been applied to that salary number. For the first position, that benefit cost calculated to $14,437, so a total fiscal year 23 salaries and benefit budget impact of $64,221 for that first position. In that last column to the right, the total for fiscal year 24, the S&B is salaries and benefits. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned it's a fully burdened rate, and the total for that first position was $192,664. Again, that's an estimate including the salary number plus a 29% estimated benefits amount. Similar for the second position, and then for the third position, Assistant City Manager, the new position, that is a per contract, so there's not a range, it's a per contract number. Again, the salaries number is based on the contract, and it's a 4-month impact for the first column for fiscal year 23. It worked out the budget worksheet was also a 29% benefit rate. So that equals 21,730. And for fiscal year '23, the impact to that position was 96,663. And then the annualized number, the 289, is the fully burdened salaries and benefits number on a go-forward basis. All the way down at the end, there is a summary of the costs. For fiscal year '23, all of these are in the general fund. The budget fiscal impact for fiscal year '23 is estimated to be $194,130. And again, using the same assumptions, the fiscal year '24 impact is $675,316. I did want to clarify, as earlier during the public comment period, there was different discussions, but I did want to highlight once more that the totals include a fully burdened amount, salaries and benefits. So I did want to clarify that. Also in this item, there is, in that center paragraph, there is a highlight of the city manager work employment agreement. Based on the assumptions that were used in the budget versus the agreement that will be in place March 1st through June 30th. And when you compare apples to apples with those two amounts, there's a budget savings of $30,975 between the consideration of those two items by themselves. The other two positions that were highlighted in light blue are reallocations. All of those numbers were included in the original budget, and those do not have a budget impact. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Crawford, do you have anything further?
No, other than the recommendations are listed on page 361 of the staff report. You have recommendation number 1, which is to approve the amendment to fiscal year 22-23 annual budget for salary and benefits, and item number 2, A through H.
Thank you. Is there any questions of staff before we do public comment, or would you like to wait for public comment because there are several speakers on the matter?
I don't have questions, but I'll have some things to discuss about it later.
Okay, we'll move to public comment first, then we'll come back for discussion. First speaker is Diane Smith, followed by Christine Muller.
My name is Diane Smith, and I live in District 5. I am opposed to Agenda Item 13 in its entirety. This proposal is the most asinine, absurd, unethical, immoral, stupid, and illegal proposal I have ever seen in my life. Chris Mann must not have any respect for the council's ability to understand. How could he think you would take this proposal seriously? He planned to slip it by you. I hope you'll prove him wrong. Who would tell a city manager that he could have 110% of the base salary of the next highest paid employee, and that he could set that employee's wage at whatever he wanted? No wonder Chris set the new assistant manager's salary at $290,000 when he himself only earns $240,000. He just gave himself a raise of $79,000. Can you see how? By applying the 110% separation rule in his contract. And I know that Mayor Beaver said that they wouldn't take that for 1 year, but they'll take it right after the year's up, and then we'll have the same problem again. Our municipal code is clear about what the city manager's responsibilities are. Item D, administrative reorganization of office, states, it shall be the duty and responsibility of the city manager to conduct studies and effect such administrative organization of offices, positions, or units under his or her direction as may be indicated in the interest of efficient, effective, and economical conduct of the city's business. Chris Mann's proposal is not efficient nor effective, and it's far from economical. How did he justify so many new jobs at an annual increase of over $675,000 in salaries and benefits? How is this more economical than our current structure? Since his income is affected by the salaries of others, it would be a conflict of interest if he sets those wages. And please don't let him put his friends on contract. It's much harder to hire them, it's harder to fire them. And if they are like Chris, we will want to fire them. It's very concerning that there doesn't appear to be anyone monitoring Chris's actions. Please vote no on agenda item 13.
Thank you, ma'am. Christine Muller, followed by Dan Whitehead.
Christine Moeller. I, along with many citizens, can see between the lines here. As I see it, Mann is structuring a revision of city staff, including but not limited to eventually retiring Jennifer Crawford, our interim city manager, from her position and taking away our current interim managers, who is also the assistant manager for years' duties, as well as other positions, the clerk, the communications officer, etc. What's wrong with Kim over here? She's been doing a great job. What's wrong with Jennifer over here? She's been groomed for over 25 years to be the next city manager. She knows everything. She's been involved with everything. What's wrong with Shane over here? He was the best hire that we've had in a long time. Stand up, Shane. Let the city see who you are. We're so proud of you. We're very proud of our city staff. Very, very proud. Increasing our current budget by staffing by 29% annually is not a good business decision. It would be a horrible decision for any business or city to make such drastic decisions. Councilman Garner, I interviewed you when you were a candidate. We knew this was coming up, and I asked you specifically, you're a businessman, you said you were a business owner. I asked you, would a business would sustain these type of changes? And you said, absolutely not. If you vote yes today, you're a hypocrite, and I'm gonna call you on the carpet about that. So, as we're standing here, I want you guys, you council, to consider the following. The replacement employees have no experience in the positions for which they are slated to take. The new positions added are several senior staff level positions, again, for those handpicked employees who have never held the same similar positions. Consider that several long-term city employees will be demoted, both title and financially, for replacements that have never held similar positions or are not as qualified as those who currently hold them. Consider the fact that Mann is restructuring his staff so they are all in his hip pocket. Consider the fact that these new employees are contracted employees. Why should they be any different than our current employees? Consider the fact that Mann is making such drastic changes to our budget and staff when he has not yet officially started. Consider the fact that Mann is covering his bases because he is not qualified to do his own job and insulating himself from the current staff with his own handpicked lawyer, 3 assistants, one of which is a different title, clerks, information officer, etc. Please consider the way our current city staff is feeling about all these changes. New employees are coming in with different benefits and certainly unfair opportunities. Whatever happened to working your way up? Please do what you can to prevent number 13 from being approved. As written, if passed, will certainly further. There's a 3-minute donation here.
What was who's donating, ma'am?
Nancy Hanna. If passed, will certainly further the malaise that is growing. My analysis makes it obviously that Mann's intentions are not in the best interests of Yucaipa. You absolutely must vote with your conscience. This is super egregious. I'm aware that I'm sure you're aware of the horror the citizens feel with the changes that you have and are being made. It feels like an overwhelming outpouring from the citizen has absolutely no impact on this belligerence. We appreciate your efforts on trying to make a difference. Say no in a definitive way so that the other councilmen know and everybody knows that you represent our voice of, oh, hell no. So I'm gonna tell Mr. Mann over here to do his damn job. He doesn't need to hire whole city staff to insulate himself from us. So another thing I want to tell you is Mann is a salesman. He smears campaigns. He's a realtor. He's not a city manager. So the fact that you're putting in somebody like this and we're saying, oh, hell no, you better double check yourselves, councilman. And I'm expecting you to do what you told me you would do when you were a candidate.
Dan Whitehead and then Hanson Wong.
You might as well hire me. I'm going to be here all day. Anyway.
Mr. Wong,
so,
Dr. Wong, 1 second.
I'm sorry.
Is there a Dan Whitehead here? Or Whiteherd?
He's donating minutes.
Oh, understood. Okay. Dr. Wong, I apologize. I was unaware of that.
So, you know, I've hired a lot of people, and I vetted them by looking at their website, see how they socially, you know, work with other people, see what they've done, and look online to see how well they performed in the past, what they've done, and how they've treated other people. I mean, we're a city of neighbors and friends. We want to be treated equally. We don't want somebody that comes in that just trashes other people. It's not right in my mind. And so looking at the positions and the people that he's putting in, it would be nice if the city council would be transparent and show us their qualifications to be in those particular positions, especially at the salary that they're gonna get. When I hired people, they got a salary according to their experience, to their knowledge, and what they could do for an organization. The people you hire for those 3 positions should be able to do the same and be accountable to do the same to help the citizens and residents of the city and to do what is needed to be done. I am very concerned about someone who adds to a position in order to help him out. In addition, I was told that this had been under consideration by the city council for over a year to revamp the structure of the city. I can understand that. Unfortunately, in the minutes of the city council over the last year, I could not find anything to these positions that are being added. So I'm also concerned about the types of discussions, what members of the city council had discussed it, because I think this is important that the entire city council, previous and present, needed to be accounted for on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. The next speaker is Donna Snodgrass.
Thank you, Mayor. Donna Snodgrass, Walnut Grove Court. I had some questions. Some of them have been answered, so I won't ask them now. Page 361, I'm reading through, it says you're creating 3 positions and eliminating 1, so there's a net gain of 2 positions. I guess it's more for the staff. Is the position that's being eliminated, has this salary and benefit been captured somewhere in the cost offset in the budget? Because I can't find that dollar amount anywhere, but there should be an offset. Reading through page 362, it doesn't specifically say that positions since 2004 have been eliminated or left unfilled, but whenever I see something like all of these reallocated duties, reallocated year after year after year, that indicates to me that somebody went missing and the work had to be reallocated somewhere. So there's at least 5 positions through the years that that were either not filled or eliminated. So I'm confused about all of that. On page 364, and only because I've heard it twice tonight, comparing the salaries and the 110% above. 110% just means that they're eliminating a salary compaction that happens in government service everywhere when you get a rank and file, negotiate a really good contract one year, and the managers are all crunched, and sometimes it's upside down. So not that I agree with it, I'm not saying that I agree with this language, but such language does appear in a template for city managers, and I got this from the International City and County Managers Association, and it's a blank template, and that language, not exactly, but it means the same thing as one of the options in there. I'm still not saying I agree with it, but it's not an unusual option for city managers. I want to clarify the assistant city manager salary for fiscal year '24, because like I said, I've heard it twice, that $289,988. If the 110,000 were applied to that number, it would be well over 300,000. But what's missing is two other columns like you did, and this is a good report, by the way, I'm not trying to tear it apart, is the salary for that position, if you deconstruct it, which is what I did using the current fiscal year, is $224,700 and some change, because almost 65,000 of that number is the benefit rate. It's not salary. So even if the 110% were to be applied, the current salary would be $247,000 for the city manager this year. But I think I heard you read, because you were reading really fast, that it's being waived until March of '24.
Correct.
And at that point, it wouldn't apply anyway at these numbers. So I just wanted to get that out, that big number isn't the real salary.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker, Denise Work, followed by Kathy Sellers.
Hi, I'm Denise Work. I actually didn't intend to speak. I was going to be a donator. But I'm just going to say that the contract seems to be a little one-sided rather than being negotiated on behalf of the citizens of Yucaipa. The increase in positions may be something that you all might have thought was necessary, but the fact is that's not in the, if you've been discussing it, it hasn't been in a meeting. And that's, again, Brown Act. So reminder that you all have to do this before the people. You can't go in the other room. And even if two of you talk about it and then one of you talks to another one and you talk to another one, that's another serial meeting. I don't know, I'm curious tonight, what are the rules for absences for city councilmen? Do they have to be sick? How many can they miss without being sanctioned in some way? I mean, can he hide forever? What is the deal? I don't get it, because he needs to be man enough to sit there and take it like everybody else, right? You make a decision, you stand by it. And if you don't believe in it, don't do it. He could resign, that would be a good idea. I also just, the hubris that goes into all of this when I look at the contract, and I don't know Mr. Mann or Mr. Graham at all. I'm not judging who they are, I'm judging what I see. And I think it lacks honesty and character. And so I just want to, almost $1 million that we've added in a year, that doesn't seem a good way to start off. When I managed people, I managed millions of square feet of property assets for Chevron land. When I took over a project, I didn't go in before I even starting and saying, I'm adding new people, I'm cutting people. I had to know who was there and what was there. I couldn't just make a decision. He hasn't even taken the job yet. He doesn't even start. How do you know? How does anybody know? And if I were that manager, I wouldn't want anybody making that decision for me until I got here. So I'm opposed to that just on the face. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Kathy Sellers, followed by Bob Hunter.
Kathy Sellers, District 1. It's appropriate this agenda item is number 13 because it has bad luck written all over it. Dear City Council, have you lost your ever-loving minds? How can you possibly defend the self-aggrandized contract negotiated by Chris Mann, who agreed to those terms on behalf of the city? Step forward and take credit, because when we succeed in the recall of 3 of you, we will now be stuck with your leftover horrible decision that will cost the city taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to correct your egregious mistake. That will be your legacy. We can only hope there will be an opportunity to hold you all personally liable and recoup some of those costs. Justin Beaver and Bobby Duncan have both said they did their homework, and Chris Mann is the best man for the job, and we got such a package deal with Stephen Graham. We've also done our homework. Hard as Mr. Mann may try, he couldn't scrub his websites fast enough to keep us from learning some things about him. He is a self-described schemer who lacks the sufficient education and background to demand the salary package you've agreed to, especially compared to Ray Casey's venerated Princeton University education and his vast experience. Mayor Beaver, you shared with us during the community meeting at Dr. Boone's home that the only way for a city to lose control over the city manager is when the city council loses control. You have already given that away. To paraphrase his contract, under devotion to city business, city manager may, without the prior approval of the council, undertake outside activities or other business pursuits, and city manager has discretion over the city manager's work schedule. No member of the council will order or pressure the city manager to appoint or remove any person under the control of the city manager. Neither the city council nor any of its members shall interfere with the powers of the city manager. In no event may city manager be terminated within 90 days before or after any municipal election for the selection or recall of one or more of the members of the city council. Oh, the irony. Mr. Mann, let me be clear. We are not going away. To the people who are being recruited to quit your jobs and come to Yucaipa City Hall, don't. Your tenure may be short-lived, but your reputations could be tarnished. My husband Bill couldn't be here tonight because he's not feeling well, but he asked me to share his thoughts. Mr. Mayor, Justin Beaver, you are an ambitious young law enforcement officer. My advice to you again is tread lightly. Eyes are upon you. Do the right thing. Mr. Duncan and Mr. Garner, when you resign, take Mr. Mann and his sidekick with you before they bankrupt our city.
Thank you, ma'am. Bob Hunter.
All right, City Council, Mayor, the rest of you, I didn't come with a speech. I don't have any of that stuff. Excuse me. I'd just like a clarification of the city manager's report, the finance report. In there, she stated, and please correct me and whatever, that the city manager wanted to create these positions and eliminate some of the positions so he would have a staff that he could trust. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. That's what was said.
So the meaning of that means the current staff, Chris Mann does not trust. Is that right? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Thorpe. I don't know for further public comments. Do you want to speak?
Okay, so earlier, last week, the Finance Committee met, and we did recommend this, and I'm going to explain why, and then I'm going to tell you my point of view. This is not something that we talked about in there. So financially speaking, we have a very solid financial base in our city, and I think we could afford to do it. But just because we could afford to do it doesn't necessarily mean we should do it. Now, my concern would be that we might be able to do this for a certain amount of time, and down the road, we might be creating our own emergency, and then we would be generating a perfect storm to create raising taxes or a tax initiative to try to bail us out for possibly a poor decision or not allowing it to sunset sooner. So while at the conclusion of this, financially, yes, I think we could handle it. But personally, when I vote tonight, I think that's going to be different. I'm not trying to surprise the committee with my decision, but there is some things that one of the points was just made that he wants to make sure he has staff that he can trust, but I think we also need to make sure that our staff can trust him. With saying that, whoever the city manager is, whether it's Chris Mann or somebody else down the road, whatever, I'm not giving hope, I'm just making a statement, that I want to make sure we give our city manager the proper tools to be able to make good and informed decisions. So what I would propose that we do, rather than spending the money for this now, that we hire a consultant to come in and evaluate our organization to see where our shortcomings are, where our positive portions are, and come in and make recommendations. It's like a shopping list. And doesn't mean that we have to do any of them, doesn't mean we have to do all of them. But at least he would arm him with good, solid information, because while supervisory positions might be needed, there might also be some boots on the ground positions that might be needed to share some of this workload. So I would propose, rather than spending the money on this at this time, that we hire a consultant, they come in and evaluate it, report back, and we look at it at that point in time and make our decision based on the facts that were brought in by an unbiased opinion from a company that we don't necessarily have any involvement or knowledge of, and bring them in and have a take a look at it. That's the gist of my comments. Now, that may be different than what Mr. Venables are. I was not trying to speak for him. Those ideas have come up after our conclusion of our meeting, so I'm not trying to surprise the Finance Committee, but that's where I sit right now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Venable, Councilman Venable.
You know, I was in that too, and it was open to the public, and I didn't see anybody there other than Mr. Thorpe and Jennifer Gardner and Chris Mann.
Crawford, I didn't marry Matt
I'm in
over the
Crawford.
weekend.
Sorry. But, you know, from a management point of view and stuff, when somebody big comes in the office, look at the president, he brings all his team. Look at what Tesla owner, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he brought his own team on. Most people come in, and when I received, my position as a general superintendent, I brought my people in, and we just do that. So what I'm saying is he has.
Folks, we're not going to have dialogue between the dais and the
I'm not
county.
done
We had public
talking.
comment.
Okay, I don't interrupt you, do I? Do I interrupt you? Do I interrupt you?
Mr. Councilman
Okay.
Venable, let's continue.
Thank you. So anyways, in this, he can bring in anybody he wants. We're telling him, let's give them 6 months. Work with them for 6 months, at least 6 months, to see how they work. Because right now, I believe that that's a great thing for them, at least to get around, or Mr. Mann to get around our staff, because things could change in 6 months. So that's where I'm at. All right?
If my memory serves correctly, and I've been around Yucaipa's governance since around 2005, we used to have a position in the executive staff that was below the city manager, but wasn't called assistant city manager. What was that title called, ma'am? Do you recall?
We had an assistant city manager, and then we had the deputy city manager.
Okay.
And from 2004 to current, just to clarify a question, I also served as the Director of General Services City Clerk. So it's not like a position washed away. That was a part of my title.
So I'm sorry, can we help me out? Can you paraphrase your title in your tenure here? What have you done?
Since 2004, I've served as the Director of General Services City Clerk, Emergency Operations, which is detailed in the staff report, came off in 2017. Then I took on the Deputy City Manager and kept the Director of General Services component. And then when we had the retirement of Greg Franklin, I took over as Assistant City Manager and took over finance. And then for me, wrapped the other side and took over when Paul Toomey retired from the city. He took over the oversight of planning and development. So we covered the absences of the two directors that left. But my title just is, my current title is, I still do the Director of General Services work. Kim took on the city clerk position on January 3rd. So just to give you the organizational structure and to clarify a comment made earlier.
Is there a lot of city staff that have multiple roles they fall in? That they're not
Yeah, I
necessarily
think-
captured in their employment title?
I think most all of us do, and we've been that way forever. Since I came here 23 years ago, we've all kind of picked, had new assignments to our jobs, and if we had a vacancy, then we kind of took over that service for a while until it was filled
Or not filled?
or not filled.
I have been in communication with members of, what is the title? It's like it's a collective bargaining unit with the city of Yucaipa. It's a association or union.
The general unit employees who are not management, confidential, or supervisory.
I am just a little concerned, and I do hope that at some point very soon, we see something like this come back for us for general employees, the boots on the ground. Because quite frankly, the impression I get is we are gravely overworking our employees and asking them to be stellar in all that they do, but not be compensated nearly appropriately for it, and wear multiple hats. And while I think that people need to earn their salary, I certainly don't think we need to beat our employees to death and demand of them so much that they leave the city of Yucaipa's employ and seek out opportunities elsewhere. And we have seen that. There have been people who have left because we ask a lot of them. Councilman Gardner.
Well, this is a tough one, but. This is a tough one. I do support Chris Mann, and I do support this. He wants to bring in his own team. He's basically saying that, these people are overworked, and I support it.
Did you have a motion, Councilman Thorpe? Like an official motion, or was that comment?
Yes, that was an official motion in my comment that we not approve this at this time and move to hire a consultant to come in and evaluate our organization to give us a full report on how we're operating. So we know where our shortcomings are and where our strong points are. And with that report, I would assume that there would be some recommendations as to how to be more efficient and possibly what first position should be considered.
As been demonstrated, and I've said it to y'all, I've said to some of you in meetings, I don't like consultants and committees, and I like people who are decisive. However, in light of the apparent lack of trust that has been generated here, I think it's appropriately that we do defer this to a biased third party. And I will tell you, I'm confident they're gonna come back and support changes similar to this, but recognizing that you don't trust our decision, I will second Councilman Thorpe's motion that we defer this, seek a consultant to spend money on, and ask them to evaluate our organization from top to bottom, find if we are understaffed or overstaffed, and report back to us with recommendations so that we can appropriately staff this city and, in turn, provide the service that you demand and deserve. Because quite frankly, up until late, the vast majority of my phone calls and emails are of people saying that they're tired of the roads being in disarray and taking months if not years, to fix. Tired of plan checks taking too long. Tired of city staff not being responsive. I believe there is change that is necessary, but I'll wait for a outside party to tell us that, so I will second Councilman Thorpe's motion. And is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
The motion will not carry, nor will the agenda item at this point, unless there's another motion that wants to be made for item number 13.
Can I make a motion?
Certainly.
Can we postpone this for another 2 weeks?
I don't see the need to do it. However, if you want to make a motion that we postpone it for 2 weeks, or you want to make a motion on item number 13 as written, we'll see if the votes have it.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir?
If we're looking at a 2-week time frame, that puts us at the 28th, correct?
Correct.
I will be absent that day. I will be out of town. So if we're looking for a full council, we won't have it.
Mm-hmm. Hearing no other motions, the agenda item dies, and we will move on to item number 14, acceptance of work, Wilson 3 Basin Project Phase 1B Improvements, project number 10879, presented by Landon Kern. On item number 13, there was no support for the motion made by Councilman Thorpe, nor any motion made to approve the item. Councilman Thorpe's, and then the vote, we didn't have the vote. It was a 2-2 vote. The item number 13 was not approved, correct? Mr. City Attorney?
So no action was taken. The item dies. It can be placed on a future agenda item by the mayor or the council.
Can we put it back when you come back?
I'm good with that, but that's going to be the beginning of March. I'm not sure what is that?
Does the council want to continue the item to a date certain?
I don't think we did continue it. The next meeting in March will be the 13th. The first meeting in March, rather, will be the 13th. Do you support continuing it to the 13th?
If that's what it takes to have a full council, because I won't be here the 28th. I can't change that, so.
Okay. I'm, okay, then, well, I motion that we return item 13 to the meeting of the 13th of March. Item 13 on the 13th. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries and the item is continued till March 13th, the first meeting in March. Yes, his contract has been approved and he starts on the 1st. No, his contract. This is a budget adjustment item. Item number 14, Mr. Kern, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This item 14 is for the acceptance of contract work for the Wilson 3 Basin Phase 1B improvements, which includes both the contract work and extension work for the work completed. This item with similar recommendations was presented on January 9th and before you tonight with the revised final payment in order to accommodate for required extension work that was a part of this project related to emergency and storm response work completed by the city's contractor. This first slide before you shows the area of the project here at the Wilson 3 Basin site in our Oak Glen Creek specific plan area. To the north boundary is Oak Glen Road, and to the east is Bryant Street. And this project is a large drainage project with many different components, many benefits, including flood protection in the vicinity of this project, as well as downstream. in addition to other benefits including water quality, habitat preservation, passive recreation, and groundwater recharge, and overall enhanced public safety. Since a more comprehensive overall Wilson 3 project update was presented just several weeks ago, the presentation tonight will focus on the revised final payment amount. At the conclusion of the presentation, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the overall project, including the work completed to date or future phases of work that are anticipated. This next slide here shows the area of the Phase 1B improvements associated with this contract for recommended for acceptance, which was awarded to LB3 Enterprises in September of 2021. All of this work within this area, including channel protection, the riprap of the realigned Wilson Creek Channel, drainage improvements at the city yard and church site, slope drains and fencing along the church access road and property boundary have been completed. Here's a photo here showing the progress. One of the sections of the channel that was lined with riprap, just a progress photo there from March of 2022. And then this photo here showing the basin after a large storm event, and another one looking west here, just showing the amount of stormwater and debris that was accumulated in the Wilson 3 basin immediately downstream of the burn area. In response, LB3 was authorized via change order under extension work to use a pump to remove some of this stormwater to access some rock stockpiles that were used for the channel riprap area. And this extension work that was authorized was able to minimize some construction delays and allowed the contract work to be completed, further protecting the channel improvements from future storm-related damages. This final slide here shows the approved budget at the time of the award of the contract in that second column there, as well as the actual cost for construction, and the revision with this report is on that fourth row down there, incorporating that additional extension work that was just summarized. So that number, actual cost for this contract and extension work went from $1,577,000 to $1,584,000 and change there. And the actual construction costs that are summarized in this table have been completed, along with the extension work, and staff is recommending the acceptance of this contract and extension work as revised in this report. And that concludes my presentation. Staff is recommending approval of items 1 through 3, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Landon. Any questions of staff?
Yes. The change order work, in your contract, it said that they were going to sift or screen any rock out there for the riprap. And that was in the original contract as well, right?
Yes, it was. Some of the rock was identified and sorted with the Phase 1A efforts. With the Phase 1B, there was a change order number 6 that was authorized to excavate in another area of the basin. I can show you just on the screen here. And that area for change order number 6 was in this easterly portion of the basin. That change order for the total about $269,000 did incorporate screening of rock that was used in the channel.
And that wasn't in Phase 1B?
That was in Phase 1B, and some of that rock that was sorted was stored down in these areas of the basin, and they were inundated with some of the storm events, and so a pump was installed down here at the 2nd Street outlet to remove that water, and that material was moved and relocated and eventually placed in the channel.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Gardner, any questions?
I have no questions.
All right, any motion to accept the item?
I'll move.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on, item number 15. Fermin Preciado will present the award of contract demolition of theater structure at 33994 Avenue E.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This contract is related to the development of the pickleball facility at 7th Street Park. Back in September of last year, City Council approved that development plan for the pickleball facility at this location. The development is proposed to be completed in 2 phases, where phase 1 includes the removal of the skate park equipment, construction of the 4 pickleball courts where the skate park currently is, the installation of the steel cover with lights, and that's something that the purchase of that cover and the fabrication is an item that council approved recently. And phase 1 also includes the demolition of this building, which is located in the area highlighted in pink. Oops. Gone the wrong way. So the structure currently sits in the area in pink. So this is Avenue E along the bottom. The green rectangle represents the covered basketball courts, and the existing skate park is just to the left in the red box. The contract before you is for the demolition of that existing building. The contract work was publicly advertised for construction bids. 6 bids were received. The apparent low bidder is NR Development with a bid of $38,500. They have completed similar projects for other agencies in the past, and staff is recommending that council award the contract to NR Development for this work, for the demolition of this structure. The current adopted budget includes $500,000 for the pickleball facility project. Staff is recommending that the cost of this contract come from that allocated amount. The fiscal table on page 379 of the report identifies that funding and the other items of work that have been completed to date for the pickleball facility. So staff recommends the council approve recommendations 1 through 4 for this item. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Fermin. Any questions of staff? No. Hearing none, is there a motion to accept?
I motion.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to item number 16, presented by Land and Kern, award of construction contract, City Yard underground utility installation, sir.
Yes, thank you, and good evening once again. This project before you with this report, again, is in our Oak Glen Creek specific plan area. Here before you, this similar slide you'll see with our Wilson 3 Basin project and realign Wilson Creek and Oak Glen Creek coming in here, as well as the new housing development that's occurring there, the Woodside track at the corner of Oak Glen and 2nd Street, just to orient you to this area once again. The new City Yard project is one of those components of the approved Oak Glen Creek specific plan, and previously located on 2nd Street. Our previous City Yard facilities were located at the location of the corner of Oak Glen Road and 2nd Street, where that new development of the housing tract, the Woodside Homes, is taking place. And the new City Yard is currently being relocated and is under construction on the Innovation Zone property just south of the Wildwood Calvary Chapel church facilities. In this area here, you can see those buildings on this recent aerial. And for the presentation tonight, I'll refer to Wildwood Calvary Chapel as the church. One of the remaining phases of construction includes the installation of the wet and dry utilities, what I'll refer to as our utility project, required to serve the new City Yard. And staff has coordinated closely with the church over the past several years with respect to several items, one being the land transfer agreement that was executed and approved by council in 2019 to facilitate the exchange of 2 properties to facilitate the construction of the realigned Wilson Creek and Wilson 3 Basin, as well as the City Yard facilities. And those areas are identified on this exhibit here in pink. The church-owned property along the Wilson Creek Channel is being exchanged for the property here on the city-owned parcel for the City Yard to facilitate the construction of these 2 facilities. And the other item that we've been coordinating closely with the church on is with respect to the design and construction of our utility service connections to serve the new City Yard. And based on our coordination efforts with the church, as well as Yucaipa Valley Water District, Charter Spectrum, and SCE on availability of service in this area, the design of the utility plans have been completed. And service to the city yard for the communication lines for phone and internet, as well as water, recycled water, and sewer connections are required and available at Oakland Road. And in order to accommodate these connections, the design proposes the construction of those underground utilities, that's being water, recycled water, sewer, and communication, through a proposed 15-foot utility easement in favor of the city on the church property along Wilson Creek. So just to the east of this exchanged property I referenced earlier is a proposed 15-foot utility easement to accommodate those wet and dry utilities. And since the new city yard facility actually drains across the property line into this new kind of common shared basin area with the church, tonight's report also includes approval and acceptance of a drainage easement to allow the city to access and maintain the drainage facilities by the city on that church-owned property there. And the church has worked closely with staff for the proposed design and easements associated with these utilities, and agree with the recommendations that are proposed tonight. As for the electrical service to serve the new city yard, SCE has identified that point of connection coming from the existing infrastructure in the city-owned public right-of-way, kind of toward the northeasterly portion of the city-owned property, near an existing well facility. And the utility project, the wet and dry utility installation, was publicly advertised for construction bids in December of 2022. We received 9 bids on January 11th, and the lowest responsible bidder being MCC Equipment Rentals of Yucaipa, California, in the amount of $463,570.87. The agenda report before you contains several tables highlighting the available funding for the city yard, the cost to date, the proposed construction budget for this utility project in the amount of $532,570.87, as well as the estimated cost for the remaining items to be completed with future phases of the work. There is sufficient funding to accommodate the recommendations of this report, and with approval of the items in this agenda report, staff can move forward to coordinate with the utility agencies to obtain utility services for the new city yard facilities and begin construction for these improvements. With that, staff recommends council approve items 1 through 7 in the report, and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of staff?
No.
Hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second. We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to item number 17, presentation by Fermin Preciado, on-call professional environmental review services.
Thank you, and good evening again, Mayor and council members. The California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, was established in the 70s to document and disclose impacts to the environment. And as you're aware, all private land development projects within the city, all discretionary private land development projects within the city are subject to this requirement. And since the city of Yucaipa is a lead agency, the city is responsible to ensure that this requirement is met. Smaller land development projects do qualify for an exemption from CEQA, since those impacts to the environment are minimal. But larger projects do not qualify for that exemption, and they do require the preparation of a more involved environmental document, such as an initial study, a negative declaration, a mitigated negative declaration, or perhaps even an environmental impact report. These documents do include various studies that support that environmental review for the decision makers, such as the Planning Commission and the City Council. The documents that are prepared also help defend the decision makers' decisions should there be a lawsuit against the project if they are approved. The environmental related impacts are key issues that generally surrounding neighbors will have when a new land development project is initiated. These documents, they do help address those issues, and when applicable, they do identify any mitigation measures to further address those concerns. So up until a few years ago, staff had typically prepared the majority, if not all, of these environmental documents for these private land development projects. With exemption of a EIR, those have typically been done by an environmental consultant. In July of 2020, City Council recognized that with evolving CEQA laws and the enhanced requirements for technical studies and other analytical models that are required for these reviews, City Council recognized that the staff resources required to prepare these documents became untenable. So since July of that year, since July of 2020, City Council has allowed the use of these on-call environmental consultants to prepare the environmental documents for most private land development projects. However, over that time, staff continued to complete this effort in-house for certain projects due to the opposition of some developers of using on-call environmental consultants. The number of private land development applications that have been received by the planning department has increased over the last 2 years, and many of them have been for more complex projects that involve multiple studies and minor general plan amendments. So as a result, back in August of last year of 2022, City Council directed staff to transition using on-call consultants for all private land development projects. And then also, Council also directed staff to revisit this item again in 6 months. So here we are today, and over the last 6 months, staff has continued to receive that high number of applications for these land development projects. The use of on-call consultants is common to many of our surrounding cities, such as Redlands, Highland, Calamasa, Loma Linda, Colton, and others. And as I mentioned previously, some of the benefits for the cities to use these on-call consultants include the fact that they make the environmental review for these projects more defensible. On-call consultants do have immediate access to experts in certain fields such as noise studies and other studies that are involved in this environmental review. They also provide an impartial analysis, and it does allow cities to better balance their planning department's ability or the planning department's daily tasks, including the ability to focus on customer service to the public. So the recommendation before you tonight is that staff is recommending to continue the use of on-call consultants for environmental review services related to the entitlement of the private land development projects. That concludes my report, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you, sir. We do have public comment on the matter. The first public speaker, Mr. Travis Heaps.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Travis Heaps, and I reside on 13th Street, and I am representing Premium Land Development. Prior to working with Premium, I worked in the planning department for the city of Yucaipa from 2017 to the middle of 2020, and ironically was on the panel that actually selected the various on-call consultants. So I believe I have some unique insight to the background that led to the city's shift toward on-call consultants. Excuse me. In November of 2019, the city of Yucaipa faced a budget deficit of several $100,000 as there was an issue with the paramedic assessment that did not include a financial escalator. To narrow the deficit, the city proposed a ballot measure E to increase taxes citywide. However, this was voted down by the community. In December 2019, the city offered a golden handshake to employees that were close to retirement, which included retirement of key executive management employees such as the assistant city manager and the community development director / city planner, to name a few. Rather than posting the job opening to the public, the city promoted within. I myself was promoted from development services technician to assistant planner, and then the then associate planner was promoted to city planner / planning manager. The city then began interviewing for the development services technician position that was vacant to bring the planning department back to its staffing levels. Then in 2020, COVID-19 hit. This $300,000 budget had doubled seemingly overnight. Some city staff members were even laid off because of it, which made restaffing the planning department an impossible task. Suddenly, it was Ben and myself as the only planners that were qualified to process development applications. As the assistant planner, I prepared initial studies and participated in the preparation of these MNDs, these CEQA documents myself, but I was still relatively green to be relied upon to prepare those documents. Historically, an associate planner, which is the journeyman level in the planner series for the city, is responsible for preparing the initial study and well as the mitigated declarations. That doesn't count for EIRs, that still was from an outside agency would prepare those. But with the promotion from associate planner to city planner / planning manager, there was no one to fill this hole. Further exacerbating the staffing levels, I left to work with my father in July of 2020, which left Ben as the sole planner in the department, thus creating untenable staff levels for the amount of work needed from the planning department. The solution was to require all private land development projects to utilize one of the city's selected on-call consultants to prepare all the documents rather than staff preparing and reviewing the appropriate CEQA documents in-house. On the surface, as an emergency response to everything that was happening at the time, this approach made sense. However, there are significant ramifications to utilizing this on-call system. At no point during the panel to select the consultants was cost to the private developer ever considered. What once cost $5,300 to prepare the CEQA, I'm almost done. To prepare the CEQA is now upwards of $40,000 to $50,000 at the least. While I believe the city intended to create a smoother / more efficient process while doing the most with less, I don't believe, and this was shared at the August meeting when this was last brought up, I don't believe that the city intended to scare developers away from the city, which in my opinion is what this does. And to close it out, considering that the budget issues and COVID-19 are now in our rearview mirror and the planning staff are now closer to its historic levels, I implore the city council to revert back to the way the city has operated in the past and handling the CEQA review.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Craig Heaps.
Mayor, council members, good evening. I apologize for my son's language. This kind of gets back to your boots on the ground approach that you spoke about just a little while ago. That I believe the planning department doesn't have the proper staffing levels to keep up with what's going on. And I want to kind of go with a little bit over with you. In late 2021, I spoke with Ray Casey about the on-call issues. He asked me to be patient, as Ben was the only one qualified to do the CEQAs. Because of his qualifications, he was also managing the Freeway Corridor Specific Plan, the Wildwood Freeway Interchange, the housing element, and the Yucaipa Valley Wine Country Specific Plan. And the only one of those that's been completed so far at this point is, of course, the housing element. Most of the other ones are in EIR process. They're going through that process. He offered to move 2 projects forward, and within 5 to 6 months, when these major projects were complete, we could work on the rest. Unfortunately, these projects have taken longer than expected. I met with Mr. Casey this last December, review what I'm about to tell you, and he said he would eliminate the on-call for private development and review on the second meeting in January. Fortunately, we never got there. Mr. Thorpe, I'll get to that in a second. I have a project that is on hold right now. It's with the Moss Manley Foundation. You asked a question of the staff recently, and it was, how much of a difference does this make? And the other question you asked was, what is the time frame on it? How much longer does it take? You were told by one staff member it was 30%, about 30% more, and by another staff member that it was 25 to 35% more. I have to tell you that a client of mine, the Moss Family Foundation, has a project on 14th Street. All the reports and planning is reviews and ready for CEQA studies. We did all the reports. We hired biologists. We hired all the different people that would need to do the traffic studies and so forth. It needed a general plan and a change of zone. PlaceWorks has bid just the sequence, just to write the initial study and the negative declaration staff report, they have a bid in of $62,666 just to do the sequence. No reports, no peer review on the reports, $66,000 just to do the sequence. On that one, we have, in fact, I have it right here. The project itself, a similar project that I had next to the fire station, general plan amendment, change of zone, same thing, cost $13,320.49. Only $2,986 of that was the negative declaration in the initial study. $2,900, $62,000. That's not a difference of 30% or 35%. It's a difference of 2,900% or 2,100% that we're facing. I would ask that you not move forward with this. Allow me to maybe have a meeting with Mr. Preciado to sit down and go over the real numbers that are here, to know what the numbers are, and then at that point, bring it back to you guys. Maybe there's more staff that can be put on, et cetera, so.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Sir, questions of city staff?
For me, would you be open to sitting down to look at his numbers versus the numbers and illustration that we talked about earlier?
Yes, sir.
Because if those numbers are, I don't know if our projects that he's comparing are like size and scope, when we're talking $62,000 versus what he said, 5,000 or whatever it was, that seems to be a bit different than what we previously spoke about, but I don't know the differences between the two projects.
Yes, I would be interested to sit down and discuss that with Mr. Heaps, and I also would like to point out that we currently have 3 on-call environmental consultants, and what we typically do is we will request a proposal from all 3, and then we're able to look at the scope of work that they're proposing, because sometimes they have different scope, as Mr. Heaps mentioned, and we are able to work something out. But yes, I would be, I'd look forward to sit down with Mr. Heaps and discuss that.
Okay. And then, just for clarification, I think you mentioned it tonight, but when you talk about using a consultant, if they do the review and there's some sort of litigation down the road, that falls on the consultant, not back on the city, correct? Because they're the ones that did the work?
Yes, to a certain extent. And then also, if the applicant chooses to complete those environmental documents themselves, one thing, a service that the city will provide is we will ask our on-call consultants to provide a peer review of those documents that the land developer's environmental consultant prepares.
Okay, thank you. I would like to see them meet and talk about it later and bring it back, but you gentlemen know what your perspective is.
No, I agree with that too.
Do we currently have the staff capable of doing this in-house right now?
We, as was mentioned earlier, Ben Matlock, our city planner, planning manager, has been doing this for many years, so he has experience to do this. And as was also mentioned, we have hired 2 assistant planners over the last 2.5 years. One of them has been reclassified to an associate planner and has the ability to do many of these documents, and every day gaining more experience to be able to do more.
Let me rephrase my question. With current staff, is the service provided to the community based on or in line with these items, is that the service that they deserve and demand, or would we be falling short in providing the service they need?
Based on the number of applications that are currently being received, we would be falling short.
Okay. How many cities that surround us, let's just use us in the Inland Empire here, are we one of few that use an on-call service for this, or are there more?
There are more. City of Redlands, Highland, Colton, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, they all use, in Calimesa, they all use on-call consultants.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, the word liability has come up in this discussion. I want to know your perspective on this type of liability.
Thank you, Mayor.
If we have a consultant, or if we don't, what is your office's perspective relative to liability?
And I wanted to also just start off by clarifying the question, I think, from Councilmember Thorpe. Normally, consultants are required to defend and indemnify the city if they're negligent in the performance of their duties. if a environmental document is challenged, that doesn't mean that the consultant was negligent. The environmental consultant will likely need to be tasked to assist us in the defense of that CEQA lawsuit, which will result in additional costs. Those costs are typically borne by the developer through a defense and indemnification agreement that developer signs as one of the conditions of approval of their project. So there's no impact to the city, but I didn't want you to be left with the impression that if an environmental document was challenged in court, that there wouldn't be additional bills coming the city's way. It just doesn't necessarily impact the general fund. But to your question, council member, we obviously want to have quality environmental documents. It's not necessarily just the liability angle, it's that you are required as a decision-making body and the planning commission to exercise your independent judgment when you are approving projects that come before you. In order to exercise that independent judgment, you need to have a quality study, environmental study in front of you. So if you have staff that are overworked or unqualified for that level of environmental analysis, you may not have access to that information, and it could be subject to challenge in that way. I do think that my expectation in a community of this size is that you would have a blend. You would have a significant amount of work being done in-house, likely the initial studies and the negative declarations. It should be the lowest level of environmental review. It shouldn't necessarily require an outside consultant to conduct that initial study checklist, but there could be instances where it does if you have a particularly complex project. When you get into the mitigated negative declarations or the full-blown EIRs, then yes, I mean, you could be looking at needing that additional level of expertise. You know, the city doesn't walk around with a wildlife biologist on staff. That's something that we would need to have a contractor for, just as an example.
Understood, thank you. Any additional questions of staff? I would agree. I'd like to see our city engineer and city staff meet with Mr. Reeves to maybe meet and confer on the numbers he has. I certainly don't want to shortchange our citizens. I don't want to provide a service that is not, I don't want to be delinquent in our services. And if we're falling short in some way, then perhaps we continue down this road. But as of right now, I think, if I understood you correctly, perhaps a motion of bring us back again after a time. So continue with what we're doing as of now and bring us back. And what would you say? Mr. President, how long would you say we would want to bring this back?
Well, we could meet with Mr. Heaps and other developers and perhaps come back in 30 days. Or
Maybe
sooner.
perhaps aim for the same first meeting in March, around the 13th. Is that appropriate, or would you do the second meeting in March?
That's fine.
Okay. Second meeting in March?
Yes.
Okay. Let me pull up my calendar real quick. If I'm correct, that would be March 27th. Let's, would you motion to vote for that, or? Okay. So then, I believe the motion was made by Councilman Thorpe. You want to
Yes.
include the language for the 27th?
Yes.
Perfect.
Second it.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item number 18. Development of a local roadway safety plan. This is by Mr. Landenkern.
Good evening, Mayor, once again, and thank you. This report represents another exciting opportunity to put grant funding to use on city projects. In a moment, I'll introduce Todd to take over and talk a little bit more about the local roadway safety plan. I'll just begin with a little introduction and a brief overview of our capital improvement program. Specifically the revenue and funding sources that have allowed us to move forward with and complete many projects and position us well to continue along that trend in the years to come. This pie chart before you on the slide has been used before in previous reports. It's a graphical representation of our revenues or funding sources that are used to fund our CIP projects in this 20-year period here between 2002 and 2022. You can see at the bottom there we have over $211 million in project funding sources, and the city has been able to secure almost 50% of those sources made up of either a combination of state or federal grants, as well as partnering with other agencies to gain financial participation for some of our projects. And this is a direct result of our the city's aggressive pursuit and successful pursuit in various grant funding to help fund and construct our CIP projects. So tonight, we're highlighting another grant award, and with the approval of the recommendations in this report, we look forward to putting this new grant funding to use in developing the local roadway safety plan, or LRSP, which will in turn allow us to continue to apply and compete for even more grants that can help facilitate local traffic projects, including opportunities for safety enhancements. And so now I'll hand it off to Todd, who will discuss in a little more detail the development of this plan and associated recommendations.
Thank you, Landon. Honorable Mayor, members of council, a local roadway safety plan, or LRSP, is designed to help identify and analyze roadway safety opportunities, resulting in recommendations for potential roadway safety enhancements projects in an effort to enhance public safety and emergency response throughout the city. Caltrans grant eligibility requirements have been updated and now require an LRSP in order for the city to be eligible for future roadway grants. In March of 2021, Caltrans was awarded the city $54,000 for the development of an LRSP. In August of 2022, an RFQ was distributed seeking professional engineering services to prepare for an LRSP. An LRSP is an important tool that will allow the city to continue to be successful in pursuing grant funding for city projects that incorporate traffic safety and traffic safety enhancements. Staff is recommending that City Council accept and approve recommendations 1 through 5, including item number 3, which is authorization of an amendment for the fiscal year 22-23 annual operating budget to increase the expense budget in the miscellaneous special revenue fund 225 by $60,000. And item number 4, authorize a transfer in the amount of $6,000 from the pavement management program local match for state federal grant funds to the miscellaneous special revenue fund 225 to cover the grant's local match requirement. That concludes our report, and staff's available for any questions.
If I may, Todd, thank you. Just a couple more things to add with the 6 recommendations proposed with this report. I failed to mention, here are just a few examples of some of the projects that are grant funded that incorporate some traffic safety enhancements. 2 of those are very recent projects, one being the one that's wrapping up here that's currently under construction that will be coming up at an upcoming council meeting for acceptance of the work associated with 5 various traffic signals where we've been working with the contractor to implement the left turn phasing of those traffic signal modifications, one being right here at 5th Street and Yucaipa Boulevard, and the other being in the area we've been focusing on tonight with the Oakland Creek specific plan area, the new traffic signal associated or at the location of Oakland Road and 2nd Street. Both of those are just 2 examples, and some other here on the screen before you of projects that incorporated and were completed with either Highway Safety Improvement Program grant funding or other grant programs that were awarded to the city to facilitate construction. So that concludes our report. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great report. Any questions of staff? No. Anything that says safety in our city is a good thing. Good work on getting those grants and moving this forward. So is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to item number 19. This is a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing for the Premium Land Development, case number 22-121/APP/GPA/LUCR. This will be...
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
due to the proximity to where I live and this project, I need to recuse myself in the 500-foot limit.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Presentation by Fermin Preciado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I will do my best to cover this item in Ben Matlock's absence. But this is case number 22-121, which is a modified project proposal following the appeal of case number 21-085 and consists of a general plan amendment to change the land use district from RM10 to RM24 and the project is located just north of County Line Road between 2nd and 3rd Street. It's 8.6 gross acres in size, and as I mentioned, it's currently zoned for RM10, which is multiple residential. It does currently have 4 single-family residential structures that are proposed to be demolished, and it is surrounded by single and multi-family residential. As I mentioned, this application or this project includes a general plan amendment, and that general plan amendment would encompass the 8.6 acre properties, which is made up of 4 properties. And again, it's proposing to amend the land use to high-density multiple residential, or RM24. And just a little bit about the project history. The initial project review was for a 200-unit, 3-story apartment project, and it was reviewed by the Planning Commission back in 2022. At those Planning Commission hearings, we did have multiple speakers that provided comments with concerns about the project. At that time, many of those comments or concerns were regarding traffic and the higher density, and then also the pedestrian circulation. At the time, the applicant also agreed to provide additional pedestrian improvements if the project would be approved, and that included sidewalk from the project along 3rd Street to County Line Road, and also from the project along 2nd Street north to Calamasa Elementary School. The Planning Commission ultimately denied the project, again, due to some of those concerns, primarily. The project denial was appealed to the City Council, and City Council heard this on October 24th of last year. At that City Council meeting, the applicant did provide a revised site design, which revised the 3-story structures to 2-story structures, with a waiver that would be needed for landscape. And during that hearing, the applicant also agreed to reduce the number of units from 200 to 175 to address the concerns that were mentioned by City Council at that time. On the screen before you is the alternative site plan that was presented at the October 2022 City Council meeting. And as I mentioned, it includes, this concept plan included 9 2-story buildings and the same single-story clubhouse that had been proposed initially. It did have a mix of number of bedrooms for the units. And at that time, this plan included the 200 units, and as you can see, it had various 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. And at that meeting, the applicant did indicate that he would be willing to reduce the number of units to 175 instead of the 200 that were being proposed. The Planning Commission, I do have to mention, at that City Council meeting, the City Council did send this item back to the Planning Commission for their review. And at the January 18th, 2023 Planning Commission, the new Planning Commissioners reviewed the prior project history, and they did hear testimony from some of the neighboring property owners. Several of them expressed, continued concerns regarding traffic and the proposed project. Some did note, though, their appreciation for the revised site design. They did mention that some of their concerns had been addressed based on the reduction of the buildings from 3-story to 2-story, and also the reduced number of units. And one of the things that they also brought up was the additional or the greater landscape area buffers between this project and the adjacent properties. The Planning Commission ultimately voted to recommend this revised project for City Council's consideration. And the minutes of that meeting have been provided as part of your agenda packet. On the screen is the revised site plan with the 200 units at the top, and then based on City Council's direction, on the bottom you see the revised site plan for the 172 unit proposal. that is a two-story, those are two-story structures. This is a rendering of the original three-story project. And this is the rendering of the two-story project that is being proposed. This project also includes an application for a land use compliance review, and that as part of that process, this slide identifies that the project consists of 8 two-story buildings with 172 total units. 10% of those units, for 17, have been identified for affordable housing. And the intent there is to help the city meet the housing element RHNA numbers for the affordable housing. As far as the amenities for the project, the project does include 2 tot lot play areas, a fenced-in dog park, picnic areas, the clubhouse I mentioned earlier with a pool, and a private outdoor space in each unit. As far as the circulation for the project, ingress and egress is being proposed from both 2nd and 3rd Street, with an additional exit-only lane on 2nd Street located at the top right corner of the screen. This project, or the application, also includes the architectural review. And as you can see, this is an elevation of the architecture for the front of the buildings. And this next slide shows an elevation for the rear and the side elevations. This project is proposing a Spanish-style architectural. This slide shows the colors and the materials that were presented to the Planning Commission for their review, and they're also being presented for your consideration. The project also includes a density bonus agreement, as I mentioned earlier, where 10% of the units as are identified for low income or affordable housing. As part of the general plan, requirements for a density bonus agreement, there is one concession that is being requested for the 2-story structure design, and that is that the landscaping requirement be reduced from 40 to 37.2%. And I would like to mention that if this is approved, a formal bonus density agreement will have to come back before you in the future for approval. And on this, for City Council's consideration and reference, the slide on the screen does include the housing element RHNA requirements for the various income categories. And as you can see, the total at the bottom is 2,866 units, which is the number of units that is being required of the City of Yucaipa by the state. As part of the environmental review, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the 200-unit project, and based on the revised project of 172 units, all of the impacts could be mitigated to less than significant for the 200-unit project, which means that they would also apply to the lower scale 172-unit project. And this reduced project, it does remain within the scope of the mitigated negative declaration prepared for this project. Another important thing to mention with these private land development projects is the fiscal impact, or the development impact fee revenue that could be generated by a project like this. And as you can see on the screen, in total, the total revenue in development impact fee revenue is just over $2 million resulting from this project, and that is comprised of the drainage fees, traffic fees, public facility fees, fire fees, and the park facility fees. And if you haven't driven by the project site, here are some site photos of the property. You can see that there's a few residential structures on the property. And The recommendation before you tonight is that City Council conduct a public hearing and consider the Planning Commission's recommendations 1 through 7 as listed in the agenda report for this item. That concludes my report, and I believe the applicant also has a presentation.
Thank you, sir. And at this time, I will call the applicant or representative for the presentation.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council member, city staff, and all attendees in this chamber. My name is Ivan Stamenia, Nova Homes, the owner of the project, and my partner is also here, Norm Gorgoni. Norm, can you get up, please? He's my partner in this project. We have owned this property since 2007, most of it. Some of it, we bought it in 2013, I believe. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the project. Before I do so, I would like to address some rumors that has been going around the city, and I want to be very transparent about it. There is some alleged violation on conflict of interest between certain councilmen and premium land development, specifically between Councilman Duncan and Craig Heaps. I'm here to set the record straight. I want to make sure that this body knows that neither Councilman Bobby Duncans or Craig Heaps has any interest in this project whatsoever, financially or ownership-wise. Craig Heaps has been hired as a consultant, and he got paid as a consultant. That's where things, that's where the rubber meets the road, basically. Other than that, I'm ready to talk about the project. Now and by the way, I am willing I'm fully aware of the law of under penalty of perjury, and I'm willing to swear that under penalty of perjury that this is the truth, what I'm saying. Now that record is, now that I went on record for that, I would like to talk about the project. As you know, the project has been before you approximately 60 days ago. And at that time, this body, the City Council, sent me to the drawing board to address concerns of the neighbors, because at that time there was concerns. One concern was a 3-story. They did not like that. The other concern was the amount of units. And another concern was the color design, the colors. Working with the neighbors, me personally, met with the neighbors, had meetings specifically with the neighbors adjacent to us, the most affected one, Randy and his wife, Judy. I addressed all those issues. From a 3-story, we brought it down to 2-story. From 204 units, we brought it down to 172. And the color schemes, she wanted more of her tone, and that's what we did. We also addressed the landscaping on the north end, along the wall. In my opinion, we addressed all the issues that was asked for us to address. And And based on that, I pray that this project gets approved tonight. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll move on to public comment. The first public speaker is Daniel Morgan. And Mr. Morgan, and all speakers are reminded of the 3-minute speaking time.
Good evening, gentlemen, Mayor. I just wanted to express my comments and wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but wanted to come out and support the comments that were made at the beginning of the meeting in regards to Mr. Mann, and also wanted to express my concerns to you all to please consider the neighbors who are making comments. I do not live in this area. I live in Fremont in Ivy, up in the North Bench. And this is something that I'm new to this area. I'm about 9 months into this area of Yucaipa. I have for years desired to move to this area, and I feel extremely blessed to be in this area. I was saddened when I moved to Yucaipa that these types of things are happening in city council. I've come from Los Angeles as a child, lived in Loma Linda as I was doing my training at the university there. And when I came to Yucaipa, I had a really high expectation of what Yucaipa had. And from the citizens, I have seen a beauty. But when I've seen some of the things that have been happening in city council, I've had cause for concern. And I say that because when development is happening, it is needed. And development is okay. There's nothing wrong with the development. But there is an absolute need to listen to the citizens and what they are saying. Those who are affected, those who are putting their money into property, there's a need to listen to them. And as a neighbor in the North Bench, I would like to respectfully ask for all of you to please listen to those neighbors who are making comments about that, to consider that before you approve or disapprove this development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mr. Kevin Miskin, followed by Denise Work, and then Thomas Murphy.
Mayor and City Council, grateful to be here this evening. Just a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to recommend Ray Casey as a consultant for item 13. There's no one that knows this city better than anyone else. I would also ask that you please move the controversial items to the front of the agenda. They continually tend to be at the back of the agenda. I'm not against development. I'm looking forward to the development of this property. However, the general plan is RM10, that's 86 units on 8.6 acres. The general plan is a forward-looking document 20 years into the future. And we're only 7 years into that 20-year period. The proposal's for 172 units. The general plan has been approved by the state of California. There's no pressure by the state of California to change it. If we want to give RENA numbers and also Sacramento a nod, then I would suggest that we increase the number of allowed houses or dwelling units by 10 to 20%. I think that's reasonable. And for this particular project, that would mean 104 units. Matt Garner, you promised when I have all of your flyers here that you sent out during your campaign, and I'll just note that on almost every one of them, it says right here that you will stop high-density housing projects. We're going to look forward to your vote to oppose this, and that we recommend something more on the lines of 104 units. And again, we're not against development, but we'd like to see something reasonable. The general plan is for 86 units. And I think 104 with a nod to the RENA numbers and to what Sacramento wants, I think is more than fair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Denise, work. Somebody see Denise back there? I didn't see her in the gallery. We'll give her a moment, and on deck is Thomas Murphy. You'll be after Denise, and then Mr. Matt Underwood. I don't see Denise. We'll hold her to the side for a second. So if Mr. Thomas Murphy, you want to come up, I'll hold Denise's here for a second.
Okay. Mayor, council, pleasure to meet y'all. Thomas Murphy. I live on County Line Road. Basically, just to iterate our last speaker, there's reasonable and then there's just greed. That development does not fit where we're at. If you look at the landscape, you look at the area, we're single-family homes, right? And those that have developed and put in multifamily have built according to the zoning. And we've got maybe 3-year-old apartments that just went in on 3rd Street, right at the end of his property across the way. They built according to what the existing zoning is. All the way up and down the street, that's how it's been. When we did our addition, we followed the rules. Every permit we've pulled, we followed the rules. We play by what was there. We bought our lot knowing we are RM10, right? We have no desire to build apartments on our lot. We like our big space. We maintain it, not like the corner house on 3rd and County Line that you guys finally hit with a lawnmower. Thank you very much, because I am your neighbor. But long story short, the guy can develop something. And like you said, 104 units is plenty. It fits the area. It keeps our taxes down instead of that, and our traffic. And I just don't want to see that many more people coming up. I don't mind. I'm in construction. I make my living not in housing, but in commercial. But at the same token, build with what's there. Don't plop some big eyesore that we don't even get to enjoy the amenities in. It's gated. He's got a dog park. We got 2 dogs. Hey, if we want to walk to the dog park, we go down to 4th. He's got a dog park that you can go walk your dog in. But that's only for those that are paying him money. But yet he's plopping it right in the middle of our neighborhood. But anyways, that's all I have to say. Thanks for hearing us out. Y'all be blessed.
Thank you. I'm gonna put Denise off to the side then. I don't think did she leave? Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Underwood.
Thanks again, council.
Christine Muller, you're next. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't live in that area, but I'm against the zoning change and the passage of this project. I've been a volunteer cross-country coach at Mesa Grande Academy. That's probably about 3 or 4 blocks away. So I've done a lot of running around those roads, probably more than anyone in the city. There's not an entire area in that area of town that on an extended basis is safe for cyclists, joggers, pedestrians. And we heard about earlier today, there was a professional cyclist, mother of 2, that was killed on Wildwood Canyon. That's like an artery road out to the freeway, just like County Line Road is. Proper road infrastructure for vehicular and non-vehicular traffic needs to be addressed, especially around a school, before even considering exceptions in housing density beyond the general plan. When development projects are controversial, I think the logical and easy answer is just follow the general plan, or maybe 10% like Mr. Miskin said. When people buy land, don't they know what it's zoned for and plan projects based on what it's zoned for? And just on a side note, I think I read that the official public notices are for a project like that are 300 feet. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's not even a home run. That's not even what an Olympic sprinter can run in 9 seconds. I think these development notices need to be much broader than that. Maybe even anyone who takes their kids to that elementary school or has to use County Line Road as an exit out to the freeway. So that's just my mini rant from a cross-country coach who struggles to keep his kids safe and worry every single practice. I stand with those in that neighborhood that oppose the project for the increased traffic it will bring on the inadequate road infrastructure that currently exists. Thank you.
Ms. Muller.
Hi.
Colleen Wong, you're up next.
You know, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that our housing element has been certified, which means that we're pretty safe from Sacramento coming down and getting us because of arena numbers. We all need to be really clear about what those numbers are. Those are goals and objectives for cities. And if we don't meet those objectives, they're not going to come over here and sanction us and fine us as long as we have our housing element certified and we cooperate with the ADU compliancy that they require. I also would like to make sure that everybody understands that what is asked of you here is a 2.5% major variance, okay? That's not a 10% variance of what is recommended by the state of California if you were to increase the density. If he was to come up here and ask for 1,000 units and he negotiated down to 500, would that make it okay with you? I don't think so. And I really don't think that negative mitigating factors would be able to mitigate all the problems that would occur over there. I'd also like to make sure that everybody knows that just because they ask for it doesn't mean you have to say yes. You have a responsibility to these folks here in the neighborhood to say no. You also have a responsibility to uphold the general plan. I also want to ask you if we're sitting here and we hear the developer up here all the time, oh, it's taking too long, oh, the fees are going up. You guys on city council several months ago brought up those fees to bring them up to where the other cities are standards. Did you not? You did. I also want to point out that some of these builders that are coming up to you have fines and violations. I brought it up to you, Justin. You said you were going to look into it. Why are we entertaining builders that have fines and violations that owe the city money? You, city council, months ago you voted to spend $187,000 for a consultant to collect the violations and the fines that are owed them. And we're sitting here talking to people about blowing up the density and doing a zone increase, a major variance. We don't have to do that. Just because they ask you doesn't mean you need to do it. 10 to 15% is considered by the state of California generous. They bought the land knowing that they had 84 units. Why would we even entertain 175? They came to us with 3 stories, 300 units, and then right here in the thing, they came, no, we'll do 200. And now it's 173. This answer's still no, it's still not right. There's a clause in what you're supposed to be doing that says that the entire city has to benefit from this. That neighborhood, that school, none of us are benefiting from it. There's only a few people that benefit from it, and they don't live here in Yucaipa. You have a responsibility to us. Just because they ask you doesn't mean you have to say yes.
Colleen Wong.
Good evening. I'm speaking for Colleen Wang. She had to leave. And so once again, we'd like to ask if you could move these more controversial issues toward the front so that we can have the representation that we need for these projects. But I concur with what she is saying here. A developer is looking to put the maximum amount of units on any piece of property so they can make the maximum amount of money possible. not an unreasonable business point of view, but the city needs to look at what is good for the citizens of the community. These citizens have previously been very vocal in their opposition to this development. They had multiple reasons, most of which involved the stress to the local infrastructure, the community, and the school. The city also needs to look at what the regional housing needs assessment wants or requires. And in this case, there is no problem with the RHNA requirements. Their inquiries only happen when cities try to limit or try to downsize zone areas. This isn't happening here. Our general plan calls for multiple units, RM10 in this case, and this zoning allows 84 units. No one has argued against that development. We are just arguing that we should be following our general plan when development is planned. In this case, the developer came with the proposed 204 units. Yes, they've reduced this to from 3 stories to 2. They reduced the number of units to 172, the absolute amount they could fit in this development. However, they are still at more than twice the allowable units. Why is the city starting the negotiations at 172? We would like to see negotiations for all developments start at the general plan. Start the negotiations here. The owner and the developer, they know the zoning when they purchase that land. Start their project there, and we'll add on that 10% as needed. Why isn't the developer arguing the merits of the change to our general plan and telling the community what it stands to gain from this increase in units? Sure, they make more money if they stress the community, but is that good for our community? We just ask that you please listen to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Arthur Walter.
Mayor, Councilman, my name is Arthur Walter. I live on 2nd Street, lived there for 35 years. Been near the school all that time. See the traffic daily, pretty much. The problem is the high density. That should not even be considered, especially near an elementary school. Are you kidding? Any kids get hurt, as far as I'm concerned, it's all on your butts. There's no reason for this to even be being talked about, really. To take and have a high-density apartment complex moved close to a school like that and at a heavy traveled intersection, which is County Line Road, and it's battling right up against both of those places. I don't know what to say. I do agree with a lot of people that have, I'm rather proud that they came out the way they did. But that's sort of my 2 cents. I've lived there for a long time, and what happened 2 weeks ago, which was really interesting, was while school was letting out, a fire truck was coming through. Had to get through. Gee, couldn't get through. What do you know? That's part of the problem. And then they take and say, well, the traffic jams and the traffic problems, they'll only last a short time. How long does it take to have an accident? I don't even call it an accident. If those kids are getting hurt because of negligence from the city, they should be held responsible, and I think they should be sued to the hilt. I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Gabrielle Allen.
Good evening. I've been living for the last 15 years on the corner of County Line and 2nd with the roundabout that's being built and all the construction. We have a lot going on. But I also requested we are not changing our plan. If you have a fee here at the city of Yucaipa for a project, and let's say it's $200, can I just come in here and say, I'll pay you $100, but I want it done? No, you gotta go with what is on paper, and that says 86 units. I've lived across the street in Mentone. From Mentone Elementary School, there was a big apartment complex. I've seen lots of kids, including parents, moms, getting graced. I got graced a few times, walking my kid across the street to school. You put something like that there, the streets are even narrower than they are in Mentone. Like he said, the fire truck can come through. I hear the fire truck probably about twice a day, because right next to it, there's a facility for the elders, and that fire truck will not come through, or the ambulance. Also, the study was done for the traffic pattern during COVID time. Who does traffic pattern studies when there's no traffic? We need to do a study not when it's a holiday, not when it's a break, like spring break, summer break. Let's do it when school goes on, to see the traffic pattern, to see how much is going on. People told me, oh, at the planning meeting the last one I went to, they told me, well, you kind of knew where you moved to because you're close to a school. Yes, but now you're trying to put another 300 cars on the street. I just saw that 2nd Street will be an exit only. Can you imagine all the cars that are coming out? They're gonna have 346 parking spots. They mentioned, well, the mom can walk the kid across the street. Well, in order to afford to live there, I'm sure mom and dad have to work, so we're gonna have 2 cars leaving there in the morning. Right now, before the roundabout, when I was driving down County Line to go to work, when I get to the corner of 5th Street and County Line, the light there, the traffic goes all the way back, almost all the way back to 3rd Street. It takes me about 3-4 lights to get through that corner. Now you want to put another 300 cars out there? And they're building new houses on 4th Street, so that's increasing the traffic. I don't know, the street can't handle much more. And I agree, if kids get hurt, that's gonna be on you guys. I hope you don't have little ones, grandkids, kids on your own that will be injured, but
Thank you, ma'am.
you're just asking for it, waiting for it to happen.
Next speaker is Kathy Sellers.
Kathy Sellers, District 1. Regarding Craig Heap's modified change to the land use district in our general plan, listening to the Planning Commission's compliments to the developer by coming back with requested improvements, this is still against the reasoned plan set forth years ago for this area. We all know it's all about profit for the out-of-town developers who purchased this property in 2007 knowing about the RM10 zoning. Of course, Craig Heaps benefited financially on this project by receiving his consultant fee, and he does count on Bobby Duncan's votes. We know there are Duncan Heaps conflicts. That's an insulting comment by the developer. This is contrary to the campaign promises by Mr. Duncan, Mr. Beaver, Mr. Garner, and Mr. Venable. The increase of units and people packed into this apartment complex will undoubtedly increase crime rates, traffic congestion, and have a deleterious impact on not only the surrounding neighborhood, but more concerning to Calamasa Elementary School. Are you going to allow death to the general plan by 1,000 cuts? Change just a little here and a little more there, and pretty soon the exceptions swallow the rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant rebuttal. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and move to council discussion.
When was the traffic study taken?
The traffic counts were collected in 2019. However, there was an adjustment factor that was applied of 69%, additional 69% to the traffic counts because of the COVID, well, because the the counts were collected in 2019, and then in 2021, when the traffic study was completed, that adjustment factor was applied.
And how many times has this been to the city council and the planning commission?
This will be the second time to the city council, and it went before the planning commission 3 times.
3 times. And what was the vote?
The last planning commission meeting, I believe it was 5-1-1. So 5 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstain.
Councilman Garner?
I've got nothing to say.
Thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Can you say it again?
I'll motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unopposed? No. Motion dies. 2-1. We didn't have the votes, ma'am. Does the ordinance need to be read, or we just stop there?
Mayor, that's it. You can move on to the next item.
Item number 20, open the public hearing for item number 20, prioritization of fiscal year 2023-2024 community development block grant projects and programs. Presenter Philip White.
Would someone like to get Councilmember Thorpe?
Councilman Thorpe, we announced item number 20, and we're waiting the presentation by, we announced item number 20, and we're waiting the presentation by Philip White.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Item 20 is the prioritization of projects for the 23-24 Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, funding. This public hearing is conducted annually with the purpose of seeking direction from council relative to the prioritization of funding of the eligible proposals, which is then passed to the county for final funding approval. This year, the city was notified by the county that the grant amount for next fiscal year will be $239,000. You can see on the screen, the total award, the expected award for 23-24 is $239,000. There is a 15% cap on per public service agreements. That 15% calculates to $35,991. That's the maximum amount that can be allocated to public service. The remaining amount of $203,951 is the remaining amount available for capital projects. This year, there were 5 applicants or applications that were received and deemed eligible by the county. Those 5 were the San Bernardino County Library, the Boys and Girls Club of San Gorgonio Pass, FSA Redlands, Partners Against Violence, and the City of Yucaipa's Recreational Scholarship Program. The 5 eligible applications total 67,500 in requests. And again, the maximum that can be allocated to public service due to the 15% cap is 35,991. There is one construction project that was submitted. This is for the Yucaipa Senior Center renovations to flooring, roofing, storage rooms, and the workroom located in the Nutrition Center wing of the facility. There are full details of each application in your packets. I would like to take a moment and provide a reminder that these proposals will be funded 100% with grant funding. There is no impact to the general fund. And these grants are reimbursed by CDBG. That does conclude staff's report. You may wish to hear public comment. I do believe that there are some applicants that are here for a presentation. Following that, we will be available for questions.
Thank you, sir. And we did hear from one applicant. The Family Services Association Redlands, I believe, spoke earlier. And I certainly remember her comments and thank her for her time here. I would like to invite up Robin Howley, the Regional Manager for Yucaipa Library, to speak regarding the item.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, and staff. My name is Robin Hawley. I am the Regional Manager for the Yucaipa Branch Library. I would like to begin by expressing my appreciation for the support that you guys have given us previously regarding the CDBG funding for our literacy projects or programs. The Yucaipa branch offers an adult literacy program in addition to computer literacy classes. The literacy program is a one-on-one tutoring program that best meets the needs of our learners. Over the past 5 years, our branch has served approximately 120 learners, and through our basic computer courses, we have served at least 50 or more attendees as well. Some of the materials that we provide based on the funding that we get in addition to our county budget is Launchpad tablets to assist with the learning of English grammar, spelling and writing, reading, writing, and spelling books designed for adults, online access to testing and education reference centers, and job search resources and online databases. Thank you for your ongoing support and assistance in the library, and those efforts make a difference in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That is the only public speaker I have on this agenda item. Let me look at my script again. I don't believe there's any applicant rebuttal on this one, so we'll move past that, and I will close the public hearing and move on to council.
I think that there is one more applicant that wishes to speak.
Oh, I apologize, city staff, of course. I'm like, I didn't see any other speaker slip.
I apologize for not putting a speaker slip
Not at all,
in.
not at all, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The city is asking for $10,000 towards CDBG grant funds that will go to offset the cost of programming that the Community Services Department puts on. These funds would help low-income to moderately low-income families enroll into programs such as Pee Wee Sports, golf, tennis, pickleball, cheer, basketball. In addition, the funds can be used by seniors at the Senior Center to pay for programs such as aerobics, Tai Chi, line dancing, gentle moves, Japanese dance. And finally, we also this year will help our nonprofit groups that we partner with, such as Little League, Girls Softball, YYB Football, Sand Canyon Water Polo, Yucaipa Swim Team, and YVYSO to help provide scholarships for children that can't afford the programming. And as we all know, those costs are rising. Even though the cost to participate in community services programs is minimal, there still are families out there that can't afford them. I would like to note that last year we asked for $15,000 in the fiscal year 21-22 CDBG program, And out of that 15,000, about 10,000 was used, and so that's why there is a decrease in the amount requested, is because we do only want to use and ask for what we're using and to be able to provide those other dollars for our community partners that provide amazing things. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, now I'll close the public hearing and move on to council discussion. Does any councilman have a recommendation, or should I go with mine first? And
I got a recommendation.
let's hear it.
I say we give the city 10,000 and then split the 25,991 four ways.
Which, by my calculations, because I'm really good with numbers, is $6,497.75. Also, that would be my motion. What do the two gentlemen on my right think?
Go ahead. I'm good with it.
There's a four-way motion. I think we just had one. Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to the recipients. Are there any announcements?
Earlier tonight, former Councilman Smith suggested that maybe the roundabout in the Uptown Park area be renamed to Ray Casey. Do I have any support with maybe bringing that back for consideration in the future?
So originally, I think we had planned on coming back to the city in the second meeting in January for a ceremony. It was requested by Mr. Casey that we hold off on that. With that being said, I do believe substantial honors are in order for the man's legacy. I would have no opposition to the roundabout at California Street and Yucaipa Boulevard being named in his honor, amongst other things, because I believe he qualifies for our service walk as well. I think there's other city designations that the man qualifies for and should absolutely earn, or has earned and deserves to have. So staff, can you organize an item to come back to council relative to Mr. Casey's legacy and recognizing the man for all of his hard work? I think you have at least two councilmen that have suggested that, following the public comment by Ms. Diane Smith. Perfect. Any other further announcements? No? I would like to announce that I did not meet with anybody with the City of Redlands to discuss a City of Yucaipa Police Department or Fire Department. I would actually find the notion insulting if I didn't find it altogether humorous. I'm so fascinating. People have to make up fantasies about me. So that didn't happen. In fact, I have a meeting with the County Sheriff, Shannon Dykes, on Wednesday to discuss further additions to the Yucaipa Sheriff Station, more deputies, more civilian staff, bringing up special programmings. I'm excited to meet with the sheriff on Wednesday to discuss the future of Yucaipa's public safety and not the City of Yucaipa's police department, which doesn't exist, nor will it as long as I'm sitting up here. I reject that notion. But I think we've been here long enough, and unless there's anything else, I would ask the city attorney announce the closed session and items, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one item on closed session. It's the claim of Thomas Christian. The Superior Court case number is CIVDS 2009824.
Thank you, sir.
And there will likely be no reportable action.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. At this time, I'd like to thank everybody for attending and being part of our democratic process, and I will adjourn this meeting.